everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are doing Neon Genesis Evangelion 2.22 Rebuild. It's close to Halloween, so I was like, you know what? Who can I dress up with from Neon Genesis Evangelion? And the obvious choice was that I have to be Ramiel. I have to be Best Girl, and there's not like a feminine, girly version of Ramiel out there, so this is my take on it. I have my little pyramid on my headband, and I was like, I'm being Ramiel for this video. Not going crazy, but it's the Halloween spirit. Why not? I got my LCL fluid right here, ready to go. I feel pretty festive. But before we start the second rebuild film, I have several notes. I actually have not gotten through all of the comments on the rebuilds. There's been a lot, so I've not gotten through all those comments. But so if I miss something that I want to talk about from that movie, I will carry it over to next week, and we'll talk about next week here in a minute. But yeah, I have got some different comments. I've got some in this book, some in this notepad. They're kind of all over the place. But in any case, I do want to talk about this, that Viper Leone Navarre was talking about, and some of this is from the last rebuild and some of it are from other episodes that people are just now catching up on, but talked about how the angels' emotions, it could be that they're so powerful that they're destructive. And I really thought that was cool, Viper Leone. The idea, like Ramiel, her greeting is a beam of light that destroys things, right? She's just trying to say hello. She's just trying to burrow through nerve to say hi to everybody. Like, what's the big deal, right? Matriel is just crying. It's just that her tears are acid rain, right? And then there's the one that's just singing to Asuka. The Hallelujah, it was just singing to Asuka. It wasn't trying to probe her or violate her. No, it was just trying to say hello, right? And then Sahaquiel was just trying to give the world a big hug. Now, they did note that Zuriel is just pissed off, though. Zuriel is just pissed off, so there's no explanation of that one. But I love the explanation and the idea that their emotions are so huge that they become destructive, which kind of can carry over into humanity as well. So I thought that was really interesting. So thank you, Viper Leone, for that. Alexander Q talked about how the drafts, looking at the drafts for episode 24, those scripts, were kind of like Tolkien's drafting of Beren and Luthiel. And I was like, oh yeah, it's been a long time since I've heard Beren and Luthiel, but I was a big Tolkien nut back in high school. And so I know what you're talking about. And the idea of mapping the evolution of this in-universe story and all of its other attributes, I thought that was really cool to point out. GSMD noted that the 4-act structure may not apply to the rebuild titles as they're all kind of different for a 3-act structure, with 1.1 having the name Joe and Joe meaning beginning, and the other ones mean, basically they're saying that the rebuild titles all carry different parts of a 3-act structure in them. So you have 1.11, which is Joe, that means beginning. And then the other two titles are Break and Rapid. And I was like, okay. Well, Break, we know in this movie, is clearly looking like from the preview, like it's going to break from the reality of the first series. So, and then Rapid probably means it's going to have a crazy ending and lead us into Thrice Upon a Time. So that seems to check out. There have been some other comments about the rebuilds and their titles and things like that, but I haven't gotten to them yet, and I needed to record today. So those of you that have commented, there may be more about that when I do the comments for next week. So if you've commented about that, I may talk about it next week. So we'll just wait and see. Debraz, I love Debraz's idea that there's been hints of whatever happened with Shinji when he was in the soup. It could be referring to, like, what did I put on here? It could be referring to Asuka's mom. Like, there's some, like, how do they salvage souls? That's a big question. Like, how do they salvage souls like Rei's? Like, is there some tech? There's some tech that allows them to salvage souls, like with Rei and her soul, and then Shinji. Because they made the note, what this was talking about is they made the note that with Asuka's mom, Ritsuko says it's happened before. And they clearly were able to keep Asuka's mom intact, but like part of her soul was stuck in the Eva unit. So that's interesting. I thought that was cool to bring up. Schrodinger's Trans Cat had 2 comments actually. One was talking about when we were doing the episode 24 scripts, was talking about how there's a fan fiction called Eva R, which is like, it's basically talking about if they had a second season of Neon Genesis and like the Jetalones would be like advanced and more used throughout the series. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I like the idea. I may have to look that up when I'm done with everything and just for fun see what it's like. Schrodinger's Trans Cat also had a comment saying that in the original, that is one thing about the rebuilds I want to make note of, that I thought Schrodinger made up a really good point here, that in the original, the idea of nudity and the idea of sexualization is looked at in a very kind of disturbing lens. Like when we see Rei and Shinji change for the first time when they're about to go face Ramiel, we see Rei behind a screen and we see her silhouette, and Shinji's looking at it and he's fascinated by her nakedness. But as Schrodinger says, he's also embarrassed to be looking at her. Like he shouldn't be looking at her without her consent, but he's fascinated by her, right? And the idea of fan service in the original series is treated very much like it's like you shouldn't be. The sexualization is not a good thing. It's usually treated as gross or disturbing or has disturbing implications. And Schrodinger is making the point that in the rebuild, it almost seemed like they showed us just like a full-blown version of Rei. And even the scene where Rei and Shinji, where he falls on her, it was extended or exaggerated a little bit in certain parts. So I was like, is it sexualizing a little bit without missing the message of how disturbing it is? Or is it kind of playing into the way Schrodinger said was they said, it was going from a message that the otaku were wrong to the otaku hijacking the rebuild. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if the otaku have hijacked the rebuilds necessarily. We'll find out as we go through this series. We still have 3 more movies. But I thought that was fascinating. So that is something I'm going to keep track of, Schrodinger, and kind of like probably comment on depending on what we get from this episode, from this movie. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. And then Daniel Contreras talked about that Sahaquiel, the 4th angel. Yeah, so there's this comment. I don't want y'all spoiling. Don't be spoiling. Daniel did not spoil, but I'm going to talk about somebody else that was trying to be like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I'm like, no. But Daniel was saying like Sahaquiel is labeled as the 4th angel here instead of the 3rd. And I did note to Daniel, I was like, yeah, that's weird, right? It seems kind of odd. So where's the 3rd angel? What's up with that? And then the idea that we will help you from Gendo is actually in the original anime, but it's that you will be instructed. Not we will help you, but you will be instructed. So the translation makes it come across with a different tone. So I thought that was really good that Daniel noted that and kind of commented on it. And then Daniel asked the question, like, is the Mask of Lilith that Adam has on at the end of the rebuild, is it a symbol of Seal or a symbol of Adam himself? And I'm like, I don't know. That's a good question to ask. I feel like we'll get more into this movie and maybe find out more. But someone else, along with the 3rd angel thing, there was somebody that was trying to be like, Kaworu said at the end of the rebuild that this is the 3rd time you've seen Shinji. I'm like, are you trying to imply that Shinji's the 3rd angel? Because I'll be honest, that's going to kind of be dumb if that's the case, because humanity's supposed to be the 18th angel. If Shinji's like an angel, has he been cloned? I don't know how I'm going to feel about that, but also don't give me clues. So I was just like, stop. I cut them off. I was like, please don't give me clues. I've said that so many times. But yeah, I'm like, don't do that. But yeah, I'm like, if Shinji's the 3rd angel, I'm going to be like, really? I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. I'm going to be like, but humanity itself is supposed to be its own entity and is supposed to be the 18th angel. So Shinji branching off from that, how does that work? He's supposed to be the son of Gendo and Yui. I'm going to be like, I'm going to have issues is what I'm saying if Shinji's the 3rd angel. I'm going to be like, that's a bit of a stretch for me. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something totally different. But yeah, I did notice that the sequence is a little bit off. But again, we'll see. We'll find out how these rebuilds do it. Largo01 said that apparently there is an Eva Bridged fandub parody of Rebuild 1-1. I haven't watched it yet because I'm supposed to be playing Girlfriend of Steel next week, but I've noticed that when I set up wanting to do Girlfriend of Steel and do a playthrough of it, I thought that there'd be a magical Mac version I could just access, but that's not been the case. I've had a really hard time finding it. I found a PC version, supposedly, and so when I'm done tonight with all of this, with 2.22, I'm going to try to sit down and see if it'll work. I have an old PC. I really only use it to make thumbnails for my channel. I don't really use it for anything else, and so I'm going to try to see if I can download it on there and get it to where I can hook up my webcam and do it that way. But if it doesn't work out, if I sadly cannot play Girlfriend of Steel, then I will probably react to that Eva Bridged fandub parody or do something else. I'll figure out something else to do for next week if that's not the case. But we'll see. But I do want to watch it. If I don't end up reacting to it, I am going to watch it and let y'all know about it. So, but that was that. Ogami said that the translation of the German that I was asking you all about in the Rebuild movie was from Ode to Joy, and it says God judges above the stars as we have judged. And there was also some in the Discord that were talking about it being translated in different ways, but it kind of means the same thing. I thought that was really cool. Thank you very much. Kianta Kianta talked about how the rebuild production, this part was really cool, that the rebuild production actually started in 2002. And then Ano, I guess, had this big old, a lot of you were commenting about how Ano, and NL kind of ties into this as well, talked about how Ano had a strained relationship with Gainax from the start and was trying to get intellectual property back on the Neon Genesis series, and finally did and created his own studio, Kara, and started pushing Japanese animation into new uncharted waters, things like that through this move, but mainly wanted this chance to redo Neon Genesis and have it be something separate than its former Gainax counterpart. So that leads me into another thing, and I've only got one more comment here. Apparently Zodrek said that in between the third rebuild and Thrice Upon a Time, there's a short concept bit called Until You Come to Me that I could watch. Might check that out alongside Thrice Upon a Time. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like, but I thought that was really cool, so thank you for letting me know about that. But yeah, with the whole thing, right before we start, I've had a lot of people comment that the rebuild movies are meant to just be for Neon Genesis fans and not really for a new audience. I kind of disagree. I really do. I do like the idea that Ano wanted to create this series to be its own standalone thing that is not exactly akin to the Gainax version. I appreciate that, and I understand why he would want to do that. He wants to make something in his own manner, right? But the thing of it is that it is a soft reboot. And I say soft very with heavy emphasis. It's a soft reboot. It is not an original new thing. It is taking something that already exists and remaking it, but the soft reboot attribute comes in where it starts to differ heavily from the source material. And I have a feeling in this movie and the next movies it's going to differ quite heavily, but it's still Neon Genesis. It's still the same characters. It's the same aspects. I'm going to assume that we're going to reach the same conclusion by the end of it. We're just going to go about it in a different way. My thing is, when anybody says that this is only for Neon Genesis fans, I'm like, no, it's not. It's to get people on board with the series for the first time as well. If it was only for Neon Genesis fans, he would have done a prequel series, he would have done a spin-off series, he would have done a sequel series, something that would have been non-dependent upon the source material that Neon Genesis fans would know the source material for, but wouldn't need to be reintroduced. The fact that you have to start out with episodes 1 through 6, a Neon Genesis fan, we already have Death and Rebirth and Death True. We don't need a third recap. So it is a soft remake, and I do think that it is meant to bring in a new audience to Neon Genesis, but that's not to say it's not meant to lose the audience that's already there. I think it is made for Neon Genesis fans, but it's also made to bring in a new audience. So there were a couple comments that were like, oh no, it's not for new audiences. And I'm like, I disagree. And hashtag Taurus life. If you know Tauruses, we are very stubborn. You can disagree with me, and that's totally cool. I'm totally fine with it. But I don't think anybody's going to sway me from my opinion. This is also meant to bring in a new audience to Neon Genesis. But my thing is, I'm really enjoying the rebuild so far. I liked the first one quite a bit, but because I love the original series so much, you can't, I guess my point is, you cannot get away from the comparisons to the original anime series and End of Evangelion. You just can't. They're there. The fact that he's doing a soft reboot is begging comparison. And if he didn't want that comparison, then he should have created something entirely new, like a prequel, like a sequel, like a spinoff. You have lots of options you could have done. But the moment you base something off of something that already pre-exists, even if you change things, it does bring in that comparison and critique element. It's just naturally going to happen. It happens with nearly any adaptation, any reboot, anything, any sequel even. Even if you made new content, there would still be those comparisons to the original source material. That's just the nature of the beast. And so I like it so far, but I am going to call out stuff if I find critique with it. I would do that with any show. I'm not one of those reactors that's like, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread and there's nothing wrong with it. No, if I think something's kind of odd or weird, I'm going to call it out. So that's just my salty nature, and I'm Ramiel, so I can do that. Tapping into my inner angel for this one. So yeah, that's all I got though. I've wasted enough time. I'm really, really excited to get into the second rebuild, and it's 2 hours long. 2 hours. What the hell? So we'll see, right? So let's not waste any more time. We are going to start this movie and whatever all is involved with it, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see what's in store for us. Huh. I'm gonna be honest with you all. I don't think it's been a long time watching a movie since I've been this torn how I feel about it, because on the one hand, there are parts of this movie that I absolutely love. I was like, nope, this is great. My Neon Genesis, I need more of this and that. I'm just like, I feel really good about that. And then there are other parts I'm like, why'd you do that? I was like, no. So there's parts that I'm like, okay. And here's my problem. I get what a lot of you are trying to say when you say that this is meant to be its own thing. It's not meant to be exactly like the series, like the TV series and the movie. I get what you're saying with this movie. This it's definitely wanting to be its own thing. The problem is that it can't totally remove itself from the original, or it keeps trying to like hit certain beats for fan service that it's like, oh, well, we have to include this shot and we have to include this shot because that's in the original series and the fans will like that. And at times I'm like, no, you need to get rid of that because it's only hurting the story. It's like the story wants to break free and be its own thing, which is great. And when it does that, I'm like, okay, for the most part. When it does that for the most part, I'm like, oh, I really like that. But then when it tries to go back and hit those beats of the original series to appease the old school fans, it's like, it doesn't work because it's becoming its own thing. And so there's parts I really like about this, and there are parts that I like seeing updated with the new animation that I thought was really good that we'll talk about. But then there are other beats that I was like, what is Mari's role? That is the big thing in this movie. And I know, please don't spoil me. Do not tell me about the third movie or Thrice Upon a Time. It may come to be that she has a major role and becomes her own character in those movies. But here I was like, that's why I put this here. We're going to have a spot here. We're going to go beat for beat for this movie and say, what did Mari do? What did she do in this movie? It wasn't much. And it was mainly taking Asuka's place. If you're an Asuka fan, I kind of feel bad for you because I feel like Asuka kind of got the shaft in this movie character-wise. Like her character, they kind of were just like, I don't know what to... We've got this new girl and she's kind of like Asuka, so we need to get rid of Asuka so we can make her do something. So let's do that. And so, felt good for Toji. He had the happy ending, right? So yeah, there's the good. There's a lot of good in this movie, a lot that I really liked, and I want to talk about it because there was a lot of things I was like, this was really good. Then there's the not Kaworu. I don't want to say it's bad, I just want to say it's not Kaworu. So, we're going to put that there. And then there's the Schrodinger's trans cat. I was thinking of you a lot during this movie and your comment about, did the otaku hijack this film in terms of fan service? Yeah, we're going to talk about that because there's a counter on here. There's a lot of things I was like, nope. At least for me, that seemed to like take the meaning behind what we talked about and kind of like just shoved it aside. If you wanted a mech anime, the rebuilds are it. The rebuilds are definitely, if Neon Genesis had stayed to that mech formula. But in the same regards, I can't quite say that entirely because by the end of this movie, it goes into full-on end of Evangelion territory. I was like, wait, are we automatically... What about the stage? What about Shinji? Are we skipping that? Are we skipping the contents of episode 24 and just going into end of Evangelion now? Can we do that? I guess we can. But what I think is happening is something totally different, which I'm excited about. But I'm also like, the preview made it seem like we were getting into the territory of episode 24, but Shinji and Kaworu haven't met yet. Or have they? I don't want answers. No spoilers, clues, or hints, please. But I'm like, Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about this film. But yeah, I had to go ahead and make those categories because we're just going to have like a counter up here of the gratuitous fan service because there was quite a lot in it. There was no product placement. I gave Pizza Hut the biggest Razzie in the last movie. I wonder if while they were making it, one, they managed to make enough money. I feel like Studio Kara, when they made the first rebuild, since it was a brand new studio, they're like, we need some extra funds for the animation. So we got, Pizza Hut and the other sponsor to come in sponsor us. So we're good. And by the time they made this movie, they're like, no, we made enough money. We don't need the sponsorships anymore. We're fine. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because yeah, there were none. There was really no product placement that I noticed was in this movie, which was a big contrast to the last one. So I thought that was pretty cool. I liked that a lot. I mean, like I said in the last one, product placement's fine, but this was okay. So yeah, we're going to have to go through this. So yeah, let's go through this film and talk about this. So the opening sequence, okay. The opening sequence was a lot of fun. I actually liked the opening sequence quite a bit. So the opening sequence with Mari, I liked that. I thought that was cool. And so Mari, the opening with Mari, she's connected with Kaji, but Kaji's not really connected with her. It's interesting. We're going to talk about that. So yeah, they talk about the plug depth, and it's all in English. And they have like the different type of Evangelion here. It kind of looked like a spider. It was a weird type. And they're like, do the linguistic form. And she says Japanese. It's my first time, so Japanese. So this is her first time in the Evangelion. So clearly Kaji has brought her here. And so they establish that they have old plug suits. She's like, oh, this new plug suit wasn't provided on time. And she's like, oh, it's tied around my chest. Telling us she's got big boobs. So I'm trying to think what's on the side here. The Evangelion provisional boot up an entry sequence. So basically they had her prototype here. It wasn't fully ready and operational, but this angel appeared. So they needed to get it up and running. So it was kind of like a last minute thing. And so the plug suit they had wasn't really what was designed for her in mind. So IPEA. Okay. The IPEA system. So we get this thing with IPEA that we're not entirely sure about, but it has to do with the Evangelions, and I'm assuming the American unit. Okay. All right. I did like this a lot. It was a great opening sequence. It gets us into Mari's character, that they're like, she's a troublemaker. Okay. And she's like, it's in her hands. She's like, I'm so excited to be able to do it. Okay. She's like, provisional Evangelion Unit 5. And it says to activate. All right. And then it just like crawls through there kind of like a bug and goes after this angel. And the animation's gorgeous. Like the animation is great. The angel is this creepy like millipede skeletal thing. It's cool. Again, we have our English here. The original Evangelion did English flawlessly when they were doing it. Here, it's okay. Although, Kaji's voice actor does not do English very well, which is nothing against him. I love Kaji's voice actor, but his English is not great. And so it's fine. It's okay. I almost wish, here's the thing I wish would have happened. They're in this emergency, like it's basically a pseudo nerve, only it's the American version. I wish they had a translator there. It would have been a cool thing, because if you know your voice actor is not good with English and that it's going to sound kind of awkward and clunky, then I think what they could have done was have another character drawn there. Like even if it's one of these two guys, two guys that are already drawn there, have one of them like moving his arms and like moving his lips to translate, and have Kaji speaking in Japanese because he is a great voice actor, and have this other character be translating it into English to the guy. What's wrong with that? I think that would have been fine, because it was a little like it takes you out of the element of the moment where you're just like, that's not good English. But I think you could have done that and gotten away with it, which I can't speak Japanese at all. But again, I'm not speaking it in a movie for them. So I think they could have done that right. But his English just, it sounds a little clunky, and it kind of takes you out of the moment where you're like, oh yeah, there's Kaji, but it doesn't sound cool. Like Kaji's voice actor is always cool, and his English just doesn't permeate that, so it's a weird thing. But here we have, it's going through the Styx main shaft at Akron. Oh my god, Styx, the river Styx. So I have a feeling that many of you will comment what the Archeron, or like all these, like what they're doing. Also, is that in Russian? So they did say European and Russian, so maybe they're not in America, maybe they're in Russia, but why would they be speaking in English? So, But the thing there is in Russian, so that's interesting. Maybe it was. Why not have them speak in Russian? Okay. The third what did he just say? The third angel was so extensive, all it left were the bones. Okay, so we do have the third angel. That was brought up in the last film that they skipped the third angel and went straight to the fourth. The reason for that being was the third angel was the one fighting Mari, that Mari was sent after. That Mari was sent to fight. And Kaji is there. And Kaji is with her at the base. And that's where he's getting Adam. That's where he got the Adam sample from. Okay, in this film, that's where they're getting the Adam sample from. That's how we're doing this. Okay. And that was the conclusion. And he says, like, well, good luck. So, I wish I had like a category of meh. Maybe I'll do a category of meh. I'll do category of meh right here. Kaji, let me put it down here. Kaji being connected to Mari in the Adam retrieval. Okay. I think it's a cool twist. I do like that it gives us some explanation of how Kaji got Adam and him getting out of there, which is basically, this is episode 7, basically, is what we're redoing here into something totally different. And he just like, peace out, I'm going. But again, the whole thing where he's like, see you later, that's directly a reference in episode 7 where he leaves Masato. With Masato and him leaving her, it's funny and it makes sense with his character. Here, it's like, why is he in a war room already getting suited up to go fly a plane that he's going to have to go down the track and probably out to another hangar to get to? That doesn't quite make sense. So it's not like the plane's right there in headquarters. He's going to have to leave and go to another building probably to get to it. So it's just for the audience to connect back to episode 7 and know that this is what we're changing. But if they just left that out and made this its own thing, I think it would have been better. But I'm okay with it. I like that happiness doesn't walk to you is what she's singing. That's why I walk to it. So yeah, she's pretty much she's just like Asuka. She's like 1 step a day, making 3 steps in 3 days. Like she's just going through it, right? 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And like her Eva is pretty cool. Life is a 1-2 punch. Like her Eva has like this crazy design. And I do appreciate that the Eva is different than the other Evas. It kind of has like more of a arachnid look to it. It's cool. It's different. I like it. And the battle with this third angel that is this like dinosaur millipede. It's creepy. I love the angel's design. It's neat. It's about to engage in the hostile. Okay. Proceeding down the Styx main shaft. And it's got like the little fruit of life thing, and it's the S2 engine in its mouth, which is kind of cool. And she notes how it's hard to move in this thing. Like she's trying to move in it and it's not exactly to her liking. And so here's the thing about Mari. She's all about using brute force. Mari is about like brute force. And I guess that's where I'm a little bit disappointed with her, because I was expecting Mari, and I know I'm going to sound very stereotypical in saying this, but I was hoping, and it's not because of the glasses, although that does contribute to it, but I really was hoping that she was going to be like more of an intellectual strategist, kind of like what I would imagine Ida would have been if he'd become a pilot. Because you have kind of like Asuka, who is like the hot-headed, like brash, go-to brute force person. You have Shinji, who's reserved, but has this natural intuition and, potential and power. And then you have REI, who is very intuitive and kind of goes with like her gut instinct, and that helps. I was hoping that she'd be more like a strategist and be somebody that would like branch out and think of different things. And that may still happen. But in this movie, it doesn't. She's literally just Asuka, only 2 times the yandere than Asuka was. So it's kind of like, all right. It's fine, I guess. But it just isn't anything that... We already have a character like her. We have Asuka. Why do we need another brute force character that likes being an EVA pilot? But she's like Asuka without the trauma, right? That's exactly what she is. She's Asuka. She's Asuka without the traumatic backstory. And part of Asuka's main thing that draws you to her is she's so complex and layered. And so this girl's just kind of like without her, right? Acheron. They're like, Unit 5 has to do something. And so, yeah, she fights Unit 5 and she's like, don't run away. Yeah, and she's very much blatantly the opposite of Shinji. She's like, don't run away, and like goes head first into it. And is kind of like, she's sort of self-sacrificial. Like, she's like, this is fun, but whatever. Oh, it looks like a bumblebee. Okay, it's like a bee. It has like a black and yellow thing. So she treats being a pilot as being fun and is gung-ho about it. Okay. Which I was fine with that for Mari's character until when you see her side by side with Asuka, you're like, well, you're kind of the same as Asuka, which is why they have to get rid of Asuka in this movie, because they have to make it like, oh, we can't have two Asukas, so we'll just decommission this one and let her shine and have a moment. And I'm like, I don't know if it feels earned. We'll talk about that in this. But yeah, I mean, this is a great intro for Mari's character in this first scene. I really liked the first battle with this angel. I thought it was cool. And she's noting how she's not properly synchronized with the EVA unit she's in. I'm like, okay, she's perceptive. She's smart. That should be fine. But then she's not really strategizing with it. She's all just brute force and like goes into beast mode later, which we'll talk about. But yeah. So she's all about killing the angel and then it just like collapses. She does have this moment where she's like, I thought for a second, like she ejects from the EVA before it blows up. And she has a moment where it's kind of like a play on Masato, where the whole base blows up. In traditional fashion, let me make note, we can't have Neon Genesis Evangelion without an extreme and excessive amount of collateral damage. There was so much collateral damage done in this. And there's a lot done in the main series too. But man, they don't shy away from it. They're just like, yeah, we destroyed that entire base, but destroyed the angel too, so it's all worth it, right? We got the target obliterated. We just lost 05 in the process. And so then we cut to Kaji, who's like, Unit 5 self-destruct program was successfully activated. And so then we have this thing here where Kaji's like, I'm not sure about involving a kid in the affairs of adults. Which is interesting. And then because Mari says the opposite, she's like, I'm not sure. It works for Kaji, right? For Kaji to say that. He's like, I don't know if we should involve kids in something that's an adult's battle. I liked that for Kaji's character. I thought that was pretty cool. It's kind of ironic he's saying that when he's about to go hand deliver this thing to Gendo, who's planning on using children to accomplish his means, but it's a nice sentiment for Kaji. And I like the fact that we get Adam getting taken away. We get that tie-in. And then we have Mari, who kind of like jettisons herself out of the little escape, the little entry plug, kind of like Masato did. And they're like, they didn't say synchronizing with the EVA would be this intense. And then she takes off the helmet. At least I'm alive. And then we see like I'm not sure about involving an adult to achieve my own goals. That's the part that I'm like, wait, what? So she makes a note of saying that she does not want to involve an adult in her goals. And on the surface, that seems like a clever like contrast with Kaji in the moment because they're back to back. But then when you start to think about it, you're like, well, how are you going to accomplish your goals without adults? Do you just need children? It's like when you think about it more than 5 seconds, you're like, that dialogue doesn't quite make sense. But maybe there's something that we'll find out in the third movie that we don't know about yet. So don't spoil me on that if it comes out in the wash. But it's a weird line. I was just like, it's like they're trying to make it seem cool for contrast. And then she says, farewell, EVA Unit 5. And so the only thing I can think, she says, you did good. The only thing I can think is that she's like, she needs to involve like Shinji and the others. She's trying to take over Unit 3 and get Asuka out of the picture. I don't know. And she's like, you did good. And then we have new Evangelion, new theatrical version. Break. Yeah, we break a lot from the original. Not entirely, But maybe that's what the next one's going to do, right? Because the next one seems like it's going to go completely off the rails from what we've been doing. So yeah. So we cut to the cemetery. We cut to the grave markers and everything that he's at with Yui. It is comically uniform and comically desolate and barren. But again, it's post-Second Impact. It's supposed to look like an apocalyptic wasteland, right? And so we have this moment with Shinji and Gendo, and it's basically the same as it was before. To the point where I'm like, damn, now that we get a little bit extra at the end of this scene where we see that Masato was waiting on Shinji, and I was like, okay, that explains it, because in the anime we don't really ever find out. And I always remember in the anime episode lamenting being like, wow, Gendo just kind of left his kid there and just said bye. I'm like, why couldn't you take him on the airship with Rei? You're going back to the same place. Why can't you fly together? What's up with that? I don't understand. I still don't get it. I mean, it's a choice, and it's supposed to represent how separated they are, but I'm still like, you couldn't ride back with your kid? Although, now that we know how Gendo really feels from End of Evangelion about Shinji, and how he doesn't know how to handle Shinji talking to his father saying, I appreciated seeing you today, and Gendo not having an answer, it makes a lot more sense, right? It makes a lot more sense. We'll get to the dinner scene. The freaking dinner scene. I love that scene so much. That may be my favorite scene in this whole film. The damn dinner scene. God, it's bonkers. And I love it. But yeah, so we get that scene again. It's fine. It's a retreading. And it leads to us getting more exposition with Masato and Shinji. And honestly, the whole purpose of this scene is that we cut through a lot in this. Like, we're cutting through a lot of angels in this film. We don't have the infiltration of the Magi. We don't have Ritsuko doing her own thing, which the thing about it is, if you're going to streamline these movies and cut a plot point out, that would be a plot point to cut, honestly. As much as I love the episode, as much as I love episode 13 quite a bit, it's a great episode. As much as I like it, the episode where Ritsuko like saves everybody by out hacking the hacking angel. As much as I like that, if you were gonna cut a plot thread from these movies and make it still be cohesive, that would be the one to cut. Because it really doesn't tie into anything happening in the film. It's mainly just for Ritsuko and to give us information about the Magi, right? But again, it's just, it is like the writing is for people that have already seen Neon Genesis. I can kind of get what y'all are saying. It is, but it's like, you know that there's going to be people watching this film that are new, that have never experienced Neon Genesis before, and they're just like, oh, okay, I watched Rebuild 1, and I kind of got it, so I'll come into here. So you know that there's people watching these films for the first time that would need to know something about the Magi, and not including any information about it at all. It'll be interesting to see if anything comes of it later on that we would need to know as the audience. So I don't know. But I think it's fine that they cut out that part. I think it's okay. And so Masato having this conversation with Shinji about his dad here and connecting him, I'll put that in the good because I thought that was fine. I liked that. So we cut the bacteria angel. We cut that, and we have Masato and Shinji's convo about their dads. I'm okay with that. I could see somebody arguing that it's kind of on the nose and maybe a little bit more like deliberate, but for this film, they're trying to like cut corners and get as much info to you as possible beforehand so that it'll make sense later on. But so I thought it was fine. I thought that scene was okay. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was fine. And she says, be more honest with yourself. She's like, you should have more confidence with yourself and be more honest. You lived up to our expectations. And then, so she says, I'm sure your father was proud of you. And Shinji's like, okay. And then, so then the thing of the crashing into the car nearly taking them out, like, what the hell? Like, that part was really cool. I liked that. And they say that basically this other angel has showed up, right? And it's Montreal, but it's not Montreal, right? It's this creepy, like, it's Montreal, but it's also, like, got all these geometric shapes. It still has the mask that Sahaquiel had. It's kind of freaky bizarre. I'm like, what? It's a very weird thing. It's like Montreal got this bizarre gothic upgrade, right? The 7th angel off the coast of the bay. So the thing of it is that here's one thing I guess I'm going to put under not quite a fan of, and that is Asuka's introduction. Asuka's introduction and the cutting and splicing of episodes. I think it's episodes 7 through 11. I think are the ones that are kind of cut and spliced together in this. Which honestly, and I know that's probably a little hard to read, but yeah. So Asuka's introduction and the cutting and splicings of episodes 7 through 11, which is what happens in this part here. I'm not crazy about it, to be honest. I think the angel upgrade is cool. I do like this angel a lot more than the sea angel that was in episode 7. I like this one a lot more. And I think Montreal, as much as I like Montreal's design with the weeping eye, I think this is cool. I like this one a bit. They kind of take like the whole decontamination route that was in with Shinji and them, and they kind of combine it into when they go on the field trip. But then Asuka just comes in. There's no preface, no, like, you know, we had set up that Unit 2 was coming in the anime. They set up that, oh, Unit 2's on its way from Germany and we're setting up for it to arrive. And Masato's like, oh, Kaji's coming with them and stuff like that. We get none of that. And Kaji is not tied to Asuka at all. He's just a free agent that came with Adam. He's not connected to her at all. So it's like there's no Kaji connection to Asuka in this. None. Which is, I'm not a fan of that. I liked that we had the Masato, Shinji, and Kaji Asuka relationships, and they kind of crisscrossed and communicated and bounced off one another in really cool ways that helped to give more dynamic and explanations to both of their pairings. We don't have that here. So Asuka just pops in out of nowhere. She just bolts right in. And it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but in episode 7, we had all the setup of her character, and we got all the character beats with her and understood her character before she even got in the EVA unit. And then she didn't like trust Shinji from the start, but Shinji ended up helping her, and he helps her in Magma Diver later, and that kind of like solidifies, episodes 7 through 11 kind of solidifies that they can count on one another, even though their relationship is not, it's strained, right? But here, Asuka's the most competent she's been. So at first, if you were an Asuka fan, I could see you being like, oh, cool, Asuka's getting her moment to take down this angel by herself. That's really awesome. But she doesn't take the angel down by herself. Instead, Rei steps in, and Shinji doesn't do anything. Shinji's just there being like, I was visiting my mom's grave, and then this angel attack showed up. And so Rei and Asuka took care of it by themselves. And yeah, the whole thing, the thing where they cut, she did the Dance Revolution. I'm going to put that here. The Dance Revolution move on the 7th angel. It's like that whole episode, as cheesy as it can be, and as much as it doesn't directly tie to the rest of the series, so I could see why you'd want to cut it, that whole sequence where they do the kick move on the angel was to show Shinji and Asuka getting in sync with one another and showing their relationship. Having Asuka do it by herself, I mean, yeah, it looks cool, but it kind of takes away the entire message of that moment. And so again, if you're trying to make something that is on its own and a standalone thing, it's like they were doing that with Asuka, but the moment she did that kick move, I was like, you're relying on the old anime again. Stop doing that. If you want to make your own thing, make your own thing. And so I do like, okay, one thing I do like, the AT-AT fields. The ATT fields, they're cool. They are distinct and all the rainbows. I'm all about that. I like that. That part's really cool. Like it. But yeah, Asuka coming in. I mean, she does have a badass moment. And then Rei ends up helping her. And of course, I'm just like, situation resolved. It is funny. It is funny. I'm going to put on here like the almost fourth wall Collateral damage. It is kind of funny. I think maybe they know what they're doing and that's kind of on the nose because she lands, she nearly crashes the car that Shinji and Masato are in, nearly kills them right off the bat, destroys, like sends cars flying in a shockwave, destroys everything. And then she like shows up and she's like, mission accomplished. And she has like her hip cocked out in the Eva suit, like looking over at Rei, like with her hip cocked, like, who are you? Situation resolved. I'm like, that part was actually really funny. I liked that. And then they're like taking the O1, O2 unit in. And so, yeah. So then we see like Ida, for some reason, Ida and Toji are there. They just show up on the scene, right? And again, in episode 7, it makes sense why Toji and Ida were there because it was a class trip. Masato was taking them on not even a class trip. Masato was taking them to the air base because they were Shinji's new friends. And she was like rewarding them. And it makes sense for Rei to be there in the suit. It makes sense for Shinji to be there because he was in the car just now. Why are Toji and Ida here other than to connect back to episode 7, right? So that they see Asuka for the first time and get a first impression of her so that it will make sense for the rest of the movie. But I'm like, again, if you're trying to be your own thing, Asuka, Ida, and Toji make no sense being there. How did they get there? Why are they there? Doesn't matter. And then there's Asuka. And she's just like on there telling them the exact exposition she told Shinji in episode 7. And it's just like, she's just there being like, this is the news. She's like making like a Buzz Lightyear promotion, right? Designed for combat, the first genuine Evangelion. And I don't know. It does not read as true as it does from the original anime, right? And so she's introducing the ace of the European Air Force, Captain Shikinami Asuka Langley. So that's another thing. Why did she go from Soryu to Shikinami? Why did we have the name change? I don't understand why we went from Soryu to Shikinami. What was the reason behind that? That it's still the same character, so that name change is kind of odd. But they do make her, I guess I'm meh on this. Like Asuka is a European Air Force captain. Cool. I'm meh about it because they don't do anything with it. She doesn't have like any special clearance. She doesn't get to go into like any secret rooms or anything that you could do with something like that. She's not involved in any other direct military strategy. It's just a title and they don't do anything with it. They just announce it and give her a different name. So it's fine. But I do like Ida just sitting there like filming all of it, right? She's the second child. She's like, oh, it's been a while, Masato. I do like that Asuka has a better relationship with Masato. I'll put that on here. That Asuka has a better relationship with Masato. You know why that is? Because she's not tied to Kaji. That's exactly why that is. She has a better relationship with Masato in this film because she's not jealous of her for liking Kaji because she doesn't know Kaji. So for as much gratuitous sexual content as this movie gets away with, they cut a lot of the actual sexual content from this movie. I was very surprised. I guess because it's theatrical maybe and they can't get away with it, but I'm like, okay. So yeah, but Rei instantly is on Asuka's shit list. Like the moment she calls her the commander's pet and calls Shinji daddy's boy. I'm like, how do you know this though? How do you know this? Here's the curious thing. Because, I mean, I guess she's learned it from the people there at whatever the equivalent of their nerve unit is. I guess she's learned that from there. That's how she's learned that information. Because before, she learned it from Kaji. So that makes sense why she would know about Rei and Shinji. But I'm like, how'd you learn about them if you weren't connected with Kaji? But I do love that Toji's instantly against her. It's great. I love it. But yeah, and he's like, And so then she like goes, are you stupid? How irresponsible if you not be around during such a crucial time? He's like, I was coming back from my mom's grave. Sorry. And she's like, what's worse, you're not even alert. And then she just like stands over him, right? You're not even ashamed despite missing a chance to fight in an EVA unit. And he's like, it really is thanks to your father that you're a pilot. So she blatantly calls Shinji out for nepotism within the first 30 seconds of knowing him. And he's like, okay. And Masato's just like, oh, buddy. I'm like in Toji. He's like, who is that girl? She have a screw loose? And so it's amazing she's already a captain despite being our age. She must have skipped grades and graduated from university. So yeah, but then she ends up going to the high school. They say she must have skipped grades and gone to the university, but then she shows up at their school and is a student in their high school classroom. How does that work? Because if she had skipped grades and went to university, that wouldn't... So Ida is clearly wrong there, right? And then we see, okay, the Kaji scene here. Do I pass the barrier of the platform to reach the Geofront Hub terminal? And they're like, yes. And like, you can change stations 4 stops ahead. And so we see Kaji. It feels like decades. I've only been away for 2 years. Thanks, you helped me out. And he's like, aren't you with Katsuragi? So, okay. I'm not a fan of the Kaji meeting Shinji part. Because, again, we have a really great scene in the original anime where they all get together having a meal and Kaji and Masato kind of reconnect, and that's how they let Shinji and Asuka know that they know each other from the past. Here, one, how does Kaji know Shinji? Isn't that weird that he just comes out and says, aren't you with Katsuragi? Like, hasn't even acknowledged that he knows who he is. He just randomly looked over to Shinji, said, oh, what luck, what coincidence. There's Ikari's kid. I'll talk to him and ask him about it. Shinji has no clue who he is. And Shinji's like, yeah. And he's like, she's an old friend of mine. And which, if they had just left it at that, I would have been fine with this scene. If they just left it as, oh, she's an old friend of mine. And Shinji had been like, who's this mysterious guy? But then they go a step further and say, you're not the only one who knows how bad she looks when she's sleeping, Ikari-kun. I'm like... Because that signifies to Shinji that Kaji's done his research and knows that Shinji's staying with Katsuragi, but then it's such an awkward scene. And I'm with Shinji, I'm just like, what? What? But again, they had to include that line in there because it's a classic line from the anime, and the fans will all be like, oh my god, he said the line. But it's like, it doesn't make sense with the scene, so it makes it very awkward and weird. And it's like, and then he just leaves. It's like, okay, thanks, bye. And then Ida's like, how she looks when she's sleeping, he said. What's with that guy? Yeah, it's just like, that's all we get. And then it transitions to him speaking with Gendo. It's a weird scene. But then we go to the scene with Gendo and Kaji saying the problematic third angel and Eva 5 were dealt with as planned. So Kaji establishes that they got the third angel who was problematic out of the way with, and the Eva 5 were dealt with as planned. So supposedly the Eva 5 unit that Mari's in, the O5 was supposed to be destroyed? I guess. So it wasn't, but then they established it wasn't going to be an option anyway, so that part's curious. I'm curious how that's going to event. We insisted the cause to be an accident. With this, Botania Base's Murdoch project will be set back. So they're trying to keep everything's according to plan. They're trying to get the instrumentality project on board before Seal gets to it. Okay. And like, we've seen what you've sent Seal. The construction of Mark 6 was very useful. So they're like, moving on. He's like, this was the promised item. It's the lost number kept as a spare. So that's interesting. So the lost number, I'm going to kind of put this over here, I guess right here, next to Mess. So the lost number that was a spare of Adam, right? Because when he opens up the case, it's not the egg. It's not the little egg. No. He's like, the guidepost unify souls unto God. Okay, yeah, so we see, okay, what do they say? Coding number, it's 0, and there's a code. But it's like an injection, right? It's like a needle point and everything, but it has like a little bitty, this will open the door to human instrumentality. It's like a little needle and everything, and it's got like a little body to it, kind of like Adam. So I guess, so they give Gendo essentially at him again. I figure he's going to use it in the exact same way he did earlier in End of Evangelion, but it's weird that it's not an egg. I'm like, how's that going to fuse in his hand? He's going to inject himself, and that's going to be it? Why is it a little body? Is Gendo going to become a monster? I'd kind of be on board with that. If he just became this giant angel himself, I'd be, because we've established that angels can eat Evas, so if Gendo was eaten by this thing and became an angel, I'd be all for that. Let's do that. Let's go that route. How strange. But yeah, he's like, the key of Nebuchadnezzar. Now you're just being silly. No, I'm sure somebody in the comments is like, here's the biblical symbolism behind it. Here's the breakdown. Like, I'm ready for it. But yeah, the key. So basically, Gendo now has the key to start the instrumentality project and become a god. Got it. Gotcha. Ready to go. And he's like, yep, I'll be... But then Kaji says, well then, I'll be doing my own thing for the time being. Like, I'm just gonna just chill out and hang out, you know. Don't mind me. Not gonna do espionage on y'all. And then leaves. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not even gonna write it under meh. It's just a funny line, because then Fuyu's like, do you think we can trust him? And it's like, he's a chief inspector. What do you think? We clearly see him, like, doing espionage later. I do like the appreciation. I do like the attention to detail. I will make note of this movie with the attention to detail. I do like the attention to detail in this film. Like, they have the cigarettes with Ritsuko's like lipstick on it, and they have the two black cats that have the pearl necklaces. This looks kind of cheesy, but that fits Ritsuko perfectly. I like that a lot. And she's sitting there with and then we have the Kaji scene where he flirts with her. And granted, the animation makes it look beautiful. Like, that whole flirty scene with Kaji and her, it looks beautiful. And I thought he was honestly going to kiss her for a while, the way he, like, grabs her face and pulls her towards him. And he's like, oh, I already popped in a dummy tape, so it's not under surveillance. Like, he's such a smooth operator. And then she's like, oh, you cover your bases as usual. He's like, I just don't like losing. And she's like, but you've already lost. And then I love that Masato just sitting there, that terrifying woman's watching us. And she's just like, oh, I love it. I love it. It's like, Ryo-chan, it's been a while. I love she calls him Ryo-chan. That's cool. And then Masato comes in. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm on special assignment, and I'll be at headquarters for a while. Mm-hmm. Just like we were when we were in college. So I do like that. I do like they established, like, back in the day, they touched base real quick. They established they were college friends. I do like that. Just short and sweet. That's all we needed. That's all we needed to know. And it establishes pretty much everything. And she's like, I've let human resources know about Asuka. Bye. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she's clearly jealous. You have a chance with her. He's like, I wonder about that. Uh-huh. We don't get any sexy times with Kaji and Masato, which is kind of sad. I was looking forward to that in this, but no such luck. No sexy times. And then we have the Nerve Cargo people bringing in all the stuff. So he's like, Shikinami Asuka. It still sounds weird. I'm used to Soryu. There are people who actually happily pilot the Evas. More than one, apparently. Mm-hmm. And so then we have Shinji and the whole thing where she moves in and all her stuff's everywhere. I do like her little, even though it's a night slip, I do like the little red and white. It's cute. It's nice. It means you're being trashed. And she thinks that he's leaving. But Masato's like, no, you're going to end up staying here. So then the one thing that I'm kind of meh about with this, I guess, is the, when they talk about them staying together, and she's like, no, you're going to, and I love she put all of his stuff in like a box. She's like, oh no, Shin-chan is going to keep staying here. And she's like, why? She's like, both of you lack adequate communication skills. That part I'm kind of meh about, because it's Masato talking about the communication skills with Asuka and Shinji. I'm kind of meh about it, because on the one hand, it works in this moment, because yeah, they are arguing and clearly not getting along. But on the other hand, we don't have the same buildup that we do from the main series to know that they have all this communication problems. They've only known each other for like a day. How can we determine they have a lot of communication problems yet? that they lack the adequate skills. They've known each other for like 24 hours. So it's a give and take. I'm not mad about it, but it's kind of like, eh. But anyway, as fellow pilots, you'll share many things, so you better get along. And she's like, that's an order. Okay. Any scene of Rey's apartment, loved it. Yep, Rey's apartment. Rey apartment scenes. Loved them. All of them. They were so good. Every time we'd go to Rey's apartment, I got really excited. I was like, oh, because I love what they're doing here. They are deconstructing her apartment, right? And it's kind of like a fourth wall, like it's an analogy that they're tearing apart the structure that is Rey's apartment bit by bit, right? But she's still living in it. And it's almost like a metaphor for Rey tearing down her walls and becoming more open to Shinji and the others, and like just reconstructing herself. Like, I really liked what that symbolized in this. And like I said, every time we went to her apartments, I got really, really excited. I was like, oh, what's this gonna be? But yeah, we have like them deconstructing everything. We have her glasses that have just piled up in the sink. And then we see her sitting there in the moonlight. And she has her medicine, right? She's just sitting there taking her medicine, her capsules. Rei Ayanami. Which we established later is all she eats. Is just medication. Because she's not a fully functioning human. She's a clone. So that's insane, right? Like, she can eat food, but she doesn't need it to survive. Oh my God. And then, yeah, we cut from, and it's a nice visual cut from her, like with the glasses alone. There's just a few glasses sparingly in the sink, to a sink full of dishes when you have Shinji and Asuka and Masato living together. It's a great cut. Love it. It's wonderful. And then her saying, is there anything better after a shower than a beer? Okay, so gratuitous. I did not count the Asuka standing over Shinji shot as a gratuitous fan service, because you all could argue that it's not. She is just standing over him in this very dominating pose. That's just for her to establish dominance over him. I won't count that as gratuitous fan service. I will maybe count her and Pin because her in the gratuitous fan service, some weird creatures in the bath. I debated though, because on the one hand, Shinji did the exact same thing in the last episode, and it was played up for laughs, right? Because Shinji, and then when she takes the one jar away, the other jar's there. So if you were going to argue that this thing with Asuka and the straw covering her nipples, it's like, okay. If you're going to do that, I won't count it as gratuitous fan service, but it's very on the nose, right? Very on the nose. Mm-hmm. And so it's a penguin. His name is Pin. And then, of course, Shinji. Now, I will count this, though, because all she had to do was shut the door. All she had to do was shut the curtain. But instead, she gets embarrassed, and she kicks Shinji, and he has the plate covering her butt. But we're gonna count that as gratuitous fan service. Number one. That she's there, she could have just shut the curtain, right? But instead, she, like, drop kicks him to the ground while she's nude, covering up her boobs, and calling him a pervert. I'm like, you could have just shut the door. You didn't have to do that, right? And then Masato's like, oh, you're becoming more honest with each other. The things are going nicely. And she's like, this is why I hate guys. And Pin gets drunk on the beer. It's a fun time. So yeah, there's that. Okay. So we cut from there to afterwards, where we have the scene of, okay, gratuitous fan service number 2. Masato in her bedroom with Pin. Why are her pants undone and down? We didn't have any scenes like that in the original anime. Nope. Didn't have to do that. Clearly she's drunk, but let's move on. So, the Asuka doll. Can we talk about the Asuka doll? Because, okay, we better be doing something with that in the third episode, in the third movie. There better be something. Don't tell me if we are or not. Let it be a surprise. I want it to be a surprise, but if we don't do anything with this doll in the third movie, why the fudge is it here? Because up until now, in this film, we do not reference the mom of Asuka or her backstory. Nothing in this film gets brought up about it. Absolutely nothing. Except she has this creepy doll puppet. So Asuka's doll puppet is there that she talks to, But it's like the only time it's brought up, and then we see it like in the box of her stuff later on at the end of the film. But it's the only time brought up, and I'm like, she's like, I'm special. That's why from now on, I'm going to do things on my own. You can rely on yourself, Asuka. I'm just like, okay, she has this doll. It's fine. It's just kind of weird. It never gets brought up again. But nothing about her mom or nothing suggested of why she would have it. And so, but if you've watched the original series, you know exactly why she has it. And so it's like, I'm wondering what we're going to do with it. But then I will say what I do like about this is that it's kind of the opposite of fan service. And so I'm definitely going to put this on my like scene. But before we get to that, Shinji calling his dad. I'm going to put this in the meh category. Shinji calling his dad. I guess because we glossed over in the anime where he called his dad on the phone earlier, like during the daytime, we glossed over it. So it's almost like the writers were like, oh shit, we need Shinji to call his dad. Let's just have him do it here. Here, it still doesn't make much sense for this part of the story because Shinji's still in denial that he wants his dad's praise, but he's in denial that he's confident enough to talk to him. So it's a mess scene. It's okay. What I do love is right after it, the scene that we get with him and Asuka. I'm hoping we tie back to that. Do we tie back to that? Okay. Let's see if we go back to it and do it. No, we don't have it yet. Damn it. Okay, when we get to the Shinji and Asuka scene, I do like that scene a lot. We'll talk about it, but I do like that. So yeah, okay. So we have the city opening up. Everything's great. It's all sunshiny. And everybody's coming back to work. All the trains and stuff are going. Everything's fine. The stuff, when the movie decides to do its own thing and have its own scenes, I really like it. Like Maya. Okay, like the Maya and I had a hard time remembering her name in this movie, and I don't know why. But the Maya and added scenes, whenever it decides to do its own thing and do like the slice of life stuff, I freaking love that. That part's great. Like, and Maya takes the first step forward. I like that. I guess we did get some product placement. She had Nike shoes on, but it's very subtle, right? That part you wouldn't really know unless you knew Nike. But yeah, I like that. And we see Shinji like taking the little escalator and going to class. And he takes out the earbud. We see Toji in them. So again, we do get established later on that Shinji, very on the nose, says that he puts the earbuds in to block out the world and to block his heart out. But then when we see him seeing Toji and Ida, he takes the earphones out. So I'm like, look, I like that. That's really cute. We're showing them, where was this in the last movie? We're showing them building up their relationship with one another. Right? We see him going to school together, them like walking to school. We see shots of the town. We see Hikari like helping someone. We see them all gathered there, and we see him looking over and seeing Rei all by herself. And then we see Asuka there with Hikari. Like the slice of life stuff that they have in the classroom. I love these scenes. And then she like gets mad at the one kid and kicks him while he's trying to like block her on her phone, showing that she's just as mean to everybody else as she is to Shinji. I love this stuff. I would watch a whole movie of this. It's just when it feels like it has to go back to the original story, then it's like, no, you could keep doing stuff like this. This stuff's fun. And so they're like, Kaji's organizing a social studies field trip. That part doesn't make sense. I guess, no, it doesn't make sense. Because here's the thing. They're trying to tie Kaji to get him to where he can talk to Shinji one-on-one. It worked out when he was with Asuka as her chaperone because he could just show up. But because for some odd, unexplainable reason, they've made Kaji not Asuka's chaperone, they have to find a way to make him inserted into the plot for these certain beats to happen. But I'm like, Kaji's not a teacher, so why is he organizing a social studies field trip? That doesn't happen. I've worked on enough like stuff for kids at schools that I'm like, no, you don't just, a guy off the street who has no kids just doesn't be like, I'm taking these kids on this field trip. Don't worry, we've got this. That would never fly. Maybe in these post-Second Impact times, they're a lot more generous. But yeah, for him to be, what did that packet say? It said nerves, tactical operation, field combat against the Seventh Angel, research. Well, we just defeated the Seventh Angel, so He says to invite everyone. And nothing good comes from being involved with him. Then I'll pass. And she's like, nope, make peace and listen. I like her shirt says Concord. Asuka, you're going too. She's like, is that also in order? So yeah, I guess I like the field trip itself. When we get to the actual field trip, I do love that scene a lot. Like, we'll talk about that scene. I love a lot about that scene. But just the idea that Kaji's forming a social studies field trip and taking all these guys with them, or just Rei, Asuka, Shinji, Ida, and Toji, doesn't make sense. But, oh well. So then we come back to the moon. The moon scenes. Where we have this base. This Tobga base, 5 and 4 and 1. Okay. And so we're right in front of the Tobga lunar base. And they still won't authorize a landing. Okay, so this is different. Instead of going to the South Pole to get the Lance of Longinus, we're getting it off the moon. So, we're getting it off of the moon instead. So I'm like, is this going to be like a repeat of reality? Are we repeating things that have already happened? Because Kaworu said in the last film that this time I'll make you happy. Are we just repeating? Is this a cycle? Are we altering time? Is there going to be time travel involved in this series? And we're just repeating stuff that's already happened? Because it wasn't the Lance of Longinus. It was on the moon. And then it went back to Shinji during End of Evangelion. But then did it end back up on the moon? I don't know. But anyway, so we have Gendo and Fuyu-chan in these astronaut suits. I'm just like, it takes a special constitution to be an astronaut. Does Fuyu-chan have that? Is this elder statesman got the constitution to handle going out of the atmosphere and to the moon? I don't know if I'd have the constitution for it. Fuyu-chan defies all odds. It's just so bizarre. But I mean, I like it. It's different. Seal is playing dirty. So yeah, we see this like, okay, they're making Adam into the Evangelion unit. Oh, they're making Adam into the unit that Kaworu is. They're creating him into an Evangelion. What? And then they're putting like the helmet and everything on. What? So, okay. You know what? Sure. Adam is an Eva. I mean, the other Evas are all clones of Lilith. So, and Adam, so why not? Why not? That's fine. Okay, Seal's making their own Evangelion. Maybe instead of having, but they talked in the preview about the 08 unit. Maybe instead of having like the other series where they're all autonomous and look the same in End of Evangelion, Kaworu's like the leader of like the opposite unit. Like, we're gonna have Shinji's unit versus Kaworu's unit. Okay, maybe. But yeah, Seal's playing dirty. The construction of Mark 6. I feel like that's based on the book of Mark in the Bible. Mark 6 is unusual. Being able to confirm that is enough. Yeah, so Project Evangelion. They're making Adam into an Evangelion. That's so crazy. Okay. There shouldn't be any plans for anything beyond Unit 5. So yeah, clearly the Unit 6 is beyond what was planned. It's possible that undisclosed Dead Sea Scrolls Apocrypha exist. So like, oh, there's extra Dead Sea Scroll stuff that we didn't have access to that Seal does. Imagine that. Seal intends to use them to advance their plan. And so yeah, but even Seal must realize by now what Nerve's ultimate objective is. So they're like, well, Seal has to realize that we're trying to do the Human Instrumentality Project too, because they have the Lance of Longinus that they're bringing in, right? And those are Nerve satellites and everything. How weird. Yeah, we have no choice but continue forward. Even if we are to oppose the will of God. And then yeah, and then they just see Kaworu sitting on top of the hand of the Eva unit, which again I like because you have the hand reaching for Shinji in episode 1, and then you have the hand that Kaworu's just sitting on, looking up at the earth. Oh my god, I love it. They gave him pants this time though. Opposite of gratuitous fan service. We get Asuka naked, drop kicking Shinji, but we have to put pants on Kaworu. Man butt is too much. And so they're like, is that a person? It can't be. He's like, there can't be a small child up there on that hand. And then he's just like, I love it. Kaworu's like, sup, bitches. And he just looks over at them. He does look beautiful, though. Get a photo of that. He does look beautiful. He's like, pleased to meet you, father. I'm like, what? Why? I'm assuming Kaworu's not looking at... If Kaworu was looking at Adam and saying, pleased to meet you, father, that part would make sense. If he's looking at Gendo, is Kaworu in this movie going to be Fuyu-chan's kid? Is he going to be Fuyu-chan and Yui's kid? Is that going to be it? Are we going to find out Yui cheated on Gendo and had a kid with Fuyu-chan and it's Kaworu? Can that be a thing? Can that be a thing? That's what you get, Gendo, for cheating on Yui's ghost with Ritsuko's mom. And Ritsuko. Which that is something we have not seen in this film at all. We haven't touched base on the fact that Gendo was like having it out with Ritsuko and her mother. That's not even been touched upon in this movie. So I don't know if that's going to be something that gets brought up in the next set of movies. I don't know. But yeah, I'm like, if Kaworu's talking to Adam in this moment, it makes a lot of sense why he says, it's good to meet you, father. But if he's talking to Gendo, is it because Gendo has the thing in his hand that's his dad already? Is that why? Or I'm just so curious. He does look beautiful there, though. Yeah. And so then we have the Japan Marine Ecosystem Preservation Research Organization, the International Environment Agency. So you can see that there's a little bridge that takes them to it, and it's a preservation of extinct marine animals. Now this part, the aquarium scene, I really like this. Yeah, the aquarium part was cool. The aquarium part. It was cool that they went out to this base. We got to kind of see where everybody else was planning to going. And it's the restoration of the experiments from the Red Sea. A forbidden sanctuary that conducts experiments of divine magnitude. Oh. So it's actually like a nerve headquarters where they're doing experiments. Well, okay. I mean, not too much different than the Sea Worlds of today. I do love their outfits, though. Let me tell you, there is nothing better than the outfits that they all get in this. It is so wonderful. Shinji with the little polo is perfect. The polo and jeans, classic, makes sense. Toji has like the cool dark shirt with like the little fishbone thing and the backwards red cap that is the same color scheme as the EVA Unit 03, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. I love that. Ida with the camo on and the vest with the camera. Love that. Rei is in her school uniform because she doesn't have other clothes. Perfect. And then Asuka has like the pink, like the belt, the skirt, everything looking all feminine. I love it. It's just like, give me more of them. And then Kaji's there like, hey, kids, I'm in this research facility. Don't worry. Things get complicated from here. So we have the level 1 decontamination. It's great. I love that Shinji has Pin. That's great. And so they get decontaminated, and it's really hot. And then they go into the organic compound electrolytic dissociation sterilization pool treatment room. Okay. And then they get like contaminated, decontaminated again. Rei is the only one that's like not affected at all. And so then they're stuck in there again. Do the same thing over again. There's a little bit of gratuitous fan service. A little bit. I did not need to see young teenagers in underwear for a minute, but it's fine. You could have done it once and that was fine, or made it go by faster. It's okay. But they just keep doing it over and over again. And so they're like, 5 people confirmed, all sterilization procedures complete. 5 people confirmed, bird, 1 confirmed. Which is great. I love it. And then they all show up. And then they get to see the marine life. So it's kind of cool. They're like, it's a huge aquarium. And yeah, Shinji and everybody are so excited. They get to see jellyfish. And they see these animals that live before the second impact. And like turtles and everything. Which is kind of like to imagine in a post-apocalyptic world that this is what you're seeing. And then all the penguins are communicating with Pin. He's amongst his kin. I love that. That's really cute. But yeah, if you think about it, like in a post-apocalyptic world, it'd be kind of rare to see stuff like this. So it is pretty cool. He's like, they're alive. And I do love that it shows Shinji and all of them hanging out and just being kids and being friends. It's so cool. And even Asuka's like, well, they're just a bunch of kids. Baka, baka, baka. But then she sees Shinji going up to talk to Rei and is like, she always pulls out her phone, which is interesting. But yeah, the only part about the aquarium scene that I'm kind of like, about is that when he talks to Rei and says that he's glad that she came too. And she's like, well, I got my homeworks done, so of course I could come. It was the bare minimum needed to join. And so he says it's so cramped. It'd be nice if they had more space to swim. And she says that's impossible. These little ones can't live outside the tank. And she says, just like me. And then she tells Shinji that she can't be anywhere outside the tank either. That part is a little on the nose. I mean, it comes back later, but it's just kind of like, it's a very odd thing for her just to say to him at that moment. And he's kind of like, and it'll come back later being like, oh, that's what that meant. But that's probably the only meh part. But I do love the aquarium scene. And I love that Shinji like makes all this food for them. And they're like, oh, it's so good. Like for being 90% artificial, you did a really good job making this, Shinji. And he's like, well, Masato can't cook for shit, so somebody has to do it. And Kaji's like, And I like Kaji. I love this dinner scene where he's like, it's only instant food, so I had to learn how to cook. And Kaji goes, men who can cook get all the girls. And I do like that. That's a cute little flirty line. And then Asuka's just like, ugh. And then Ida's like, well, heard that? You're not going to get a girl unless you can cook. And Toji's like, I won't cook. Real men don't cook. And Asuka's like, you're so old-fashioned. How stupid. And it's like, you got to live by your principles. Which, the cute thing about that is, he says he won't cook. The funny thing is that later on, we see him with Hikari. And she's the one in episode 18 that was cooking. So that's like, that's a nice little tongue-in-cheek thing that connects back to the original series, but it makes sense in context of the conversation, and it works. Like, a fan of Neon Genesis is going to know what that's referencing, but you don't have to like spell it out for the audience. That part I liked a lot. And then, yeah, Rei saying that she doesn't eat meat, so she can't eat the food. And then Shinji finds a compromise by giving her the miso soup. And she has like this cute little reaction where she's like, oh, it's really good. And then we cut to like, I like that we're in outer space and Fuyu-chan and Gendo are having green tea. They're having green tea like in the astronaut bags. It's great. And he's like, it's so heart-wrenching, I can't even look. Yeah, the second impact in this movie looks insane. Like, it just looks like this warped black hole, and it's all like silver, it just looks metallic and silvery, and it's got the rainbow in the middle. It's so bizarre. Which I guess them being in space makes sense because it's so huge in this world that, yeah, you wouldn't be able just to sail a boat across that, right? Which, we'll talk about that at the end of the movie. He's like, there are people who wished for this disaster. The world cleansed of original sin that no man can enter. And we see little crosses up there. Mm-hmm. And Fuyu's like, I prefer a chaotic world corrupted by man. Which is a little bit different than how he phrases it in the anime. But he's like, I don't want a world cleansed of people and sin. I want a world corrupted by man that's chaotic. And I'm like, oh, Fuyu-chan, getting all chaotic up in here. And Gendo saying that, oh, well, he's like, chaos is in the eye of the beholder. Everything in this world is built upon harmony and regularity. So it's the human heart that throws the world into chaos, is it? Which is a neat commentary. I like that. It's kind of, it relates back to the idea that relates back to the idea that I've seen in other series where, you know, the world is perfect as it is. It's humanity that destroys it. And it's like, okay, you're making some commentary there. I like it. And so they're like, I can't imagine this ocean was blue before I was born. Even the simple restoration of this environment to one humans could live in is quite a feat. But the breeze, Shinji's like, it has a strange fishy smell. And Kaji's like, that's the smell of rotting marine life. It's proof they are alive. It's not like the massive red water with nothing in it. I like this conversation. Again, this aquarium scene. I like this conversation with Shinji and Kaji. It's really good. He's like, this is what the sea used to look like. The world was wide and filled with all kinds of life. And he's like, I wanted you guys to know that. And Shinji's like, I'm glad I came. He's like, Masato should have come with us. He's almost kind of flirty there with Kaji. He's like, oh, I wish Masato would have came, right? And he's like, no, she wouldn't have come because it reminds her of the second impact. So I like that. I like that tie-in. That if as far as exposition goes and giving us that, it's really cool in this scene to see it from Kaji's perspective. So we get information from Masato from Kaji's perspective, his point of view, which I think is neat. I think it's neat that we get from Kaji what's going on with her. That's kind of cool because he knows her. He's been in a relationship with her. So, and we also get to see the second impact happen with the egg of Lilith. And we see like the creepy angels with like the halos and stuff. They look a bit different than in Evangelion. I'm like, oh, what's this going to be like? It's kind of cool. I'm excited about it. Yeah. And then the Lances of Longinus. Yeah. And then we see Masato and her dad. And I like that we get a little preview of what her and her dad saw before as it was happening. That's really cool. And then we see him saving her and giving her the necklace as he's wiped away. I like that we see that through there, right? And then we see washing up on the shore there, we see the names of like all these different blocks that I'm assuming represent something that was lost, right? He's like, do you know why Katsuragi joined Nerve? Her father was a man who lived in his research and his dreams. So Kaji explains all this to Shinji, and I do like it because it gives Shinji that information that we, the audience, have known. And it kind of makes more sense later for the instrumentality because in episodes 25 and 26, Shinji knowing all of Masato's backstory, it makes sense in the context of the anime because the instrumentality is happening at the same time, so everybody's brains are merging. But here it kind of makes sense that Shinji is learning about Masato in her past, so it will maybe connect for events that happen later on. If the instrumentality happens differently than how it's been in End of Evangelion. So yeah, he connects her to him, which is kind of cool. She's just like me. But in the end, she was saved by the father that she resented. So I'm like, is Gendo going to save Shinji at some point? I don't know. Is that going to be a thing? You have to accept the sacrifices of the dead and carry on their wills. This is all the more so if you're alone. You're not the only one who's suffering. Interesting. And then we cut back to Masato and they're talking about... So that scene's kind of interesting because I thought they were still at the aquarium when we cut to the scene of this angel attacking. But they're not. They've moved on. The scene has changed, which is a good thing. I'm like, okay, that makes much more sense later on when we find that out. So yeah, so then we cut to this next scene where we have Sahaquiel. At first, I was going to be a little bit disappointed if it was just this little egg. But you know what? It surprised me. This movie was like, oh, ye of little faith. Come on. The Sahaquiel, okay, we're going to say the eighth angel. The eighth angel attack. We're going to just put it as that. I actually ended up really liking it. I liked this battle a lot. At first I was like, okay. Because yeah, they're throwing the mines at it. They're doing all that. They can't change the orbit of it. And they're like, what do we do? And so it took me a second. So I'm like, is this really... I mean, yeah, it was a bomb to begin with, but it was all colorful and had like the big, like the hands. It looked like it was giving a high five to the earth, trying to give the earth a hug and destroying it in the same breath. So it's like, are they really gonna like not have it be this cool, colorful thing? But no, we go that route. It becomes a thing. But here's kind of the crazy thing about it, right? In the actual movie. And I'm going to do also gratuitous thing because we get like the up close of Masato and Akagi's thighs and their skirts could be a little bit shorter. I was like, you can pretty much see their hoo-ha from here. Yeah. So they're basically trying to like say that protecting Lilith and Unit 1 should be our top priority. And Masato's like, I'm not waiting for a miracle. I'm going to make it happen. And then Ritsuko and her have the argument and they have this like falling out. I'm making the decisions. Okay. It's my duty to annihilate the angels. So we get a little bit with that, which is fine. And so we get them debriefing the three of them that they're going to maximize their AT fields in order to distort it and stop it. And Asuka is like, oh, well, I can do it all by myself. It'll be fine. And Masato's like, no, we're going to work as a team, right? That's the point. She's like, that's not possible to do it by yourself. And so we have like the map out of everything there. And I want to get... And I love that she's like, God only knows. It's a shot in the dark. That part was one of my favorites in the episode. She's like, only God will know if we'll make it or not. It's like, ah. And she's like, I don't disapprove of your ability, Asuka, but we need the strength of all three of you in order to achieve a literal miracle to face this bomb that is coming at the planet. So, and then of course, I like that they like just in true Evangelion fashion, they like take off and destroy like everything in their wake to get to the angel, but it's fine. It's mostly just countryside. It's okay. And so then we have Shinji right before we go there. He talks about how the Evangelion feels familiar. It has the scent of his mother and of Rei, which is a nice little nod that, yeah, Rei is basically his mom and Lilith, and that's connected to the Evangelion. So it's a nice little nod that that's to come. And so then they take off towards the Evangelion, and it's kind of great. And they end up going there, but Shinji's like, oh, I'll make it before. And then once it like sheds the outer shell and is a big rainbow bomb, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Awesome. And then they use like the buildings to make a ramp for Shinji to run off of so he can get there sooner. That part was really cool. I liked that. The animation was great. And then we get to the angel, and it like just unravels itself like a flower, and it's beautiful. I'm like, hell yes. I want to get a picture of that. That angel. I love my best girl, Ramiel. I love her, but this one is probably my second favorite now because it just looks so badass, and I love it. And it's transformed. Yeah. And like comes down and has like this creepy, from its eye, it like has this dangling angel coming down and like shoots its own like, and it takes its hands to grab Shinji. I thought that part was really creative and cool. That was awesome. And then it like shoots itself like Lance of Longinus's through his hands. What? Like, what the hell? How? Like it does that all, and that's so crazy, right? Like he's crucifying him, you know, why not, right? And that shot of Shinji's really good, where he's like trying not to cry because it hurts so much. But yeah, it's just blood spurting everywhere, and that angel looks creepy. And as it's like tendrils are coming down, it has the halo above its head, and like all these other little creatures are coming out of it. Very, very creative, super freaky, very trippy. I love it. It looks cool. It looks a lot more ominous and threatening than it did in the anime. So I give props to the Eighth Angel. It looks awesome. I love it in this. But yeah, so then the others come in to help, right? They come in to help. All these things have the creepy eyes, everything. And this is where like Asuka goes in to shoot it, and Rei's the one that manages to grab onto the actual S2 engine for her to destroy, right? So they all work together as a team to destroy it. So I like this scene a lot. This one's really good. It's great. And Asuka manages to destroy it. It all falls apart, crumbles to the ground, blows up, covers the entire Tokyo 3 in a sea of blood. Why not? It's great. It's great, right? Yep, Tokyo 3, everything. It's just collateral damage. Who heard of it? But yeah. So then Shinji and all of them are kind of just left at the end there, just sitting there waiting. And Masato's like, oh my God, we actually resolved the situation. And we have like the damage reported, where we have like, of course, Asuka's EVA unit is like the least damaged, like 2%. Shinji's like 68%. And then Rei's is 38%, where it's just kind of destroyed there. And then she calls Gendo, and Gendo wants to talk to Shinji, and that's where he gives him praise. So it's basically like the same scene where Gendo praises him, only they're not all together. Shinji just hears him by himself. And he tells Shinji, good job. And Shinji's like, my dad praised me for the first time today. So yeah, meanwhile, Asuka, she starts to lament that she couldn't do it on her own. that she had to have help. Which is, it's a good scene and it does stand on its own in this movie. It's just a shame. I think that's the biggest part of some of these scenes, is that it's a shame that it doesn't have the time to build it up like the anime does, because when you've watched the anime, a line like that hits so much harder because you've had so much more time with these characters. And that's kind of why I'm like, man, you almost wish if he was just going to redo the series in his own vision, aside from Gainax, that he just made another anime series instead of doing movies, because then at least you could have had time to space it out. But can't do that now, right? Or maybe we can. Maybe they'll make another anime series. We can hope, right? I'd be for it. But yeah, so we have Asuka. This is the scene where Asuka's in her room and she has like her stuff and everything there. And she has like, okay, gratuitous shot. I didn't need to see Asuka's lady parts in her PJs. That was not necessary. Didn't need to see it. She's like 14. Gross. And so, yeah, all you had to do is show her like go over. And she just looks over and she doesn't want to be alone. She's like, though it's always been normal for me to be alone. Being alone shouldn't bother me. I do like this scene, though. I was going to write it down, but I'm going to now. I do like, as much as I don't like the gratuitous shot of a 14-year-old's coochie, don't need to see that, gross. I do like the Asuka and Shinji bed combo. I like this almost as much, if not more, than the original one, because it takes something that is a little bit sexualized, where Shinji is looking at Asuka and like seeing her boobs and going in to kiss her, and instead, and doing so without her consent because she's asleep during that time, even though she came to him, right? I know people would say, well, she came to his bed, and I'm like, yes, this is true. I like this scene more because there's still that proximity there. And there's still Shinji being awkward about sharing a bed with a woman. But they're back to back. And he's still got the blush and everything. And he's like, And I like they did the details of his hands and everything. But they have a genuine conversation. I was like, okay. They have a genuine conversation with one another. And yeah, we still get the boob shot that we got from the other episode. And she's like, just let me stay here. But instead of her being quiet and being kind of like, not having agency in the moment, just kind of like inserting herself in the scene and letting it go, she actually has a conversation with him where she's like, just let me stay here for a minute. And so he's like, okay, well, can I ask you a question since you're here? And he's like, why do you pilot the Eva? And she's like, you called me by my first name today. And she's like, as a treat, you can call me Asuka, and I'll also call you Baka Shinji. So I do like that. I do like that we established them on a first name basis. That gets established here. It's really good. And then he asks why she pilots the Eva. And she says she does it for herself. She's like, just be quiet, Baka Shinji. And she actually answers the question for him. And she's like, why do you do it? And I kept thinking maybe their feet were going to like touch or something. But it doesn't happen. And he says he doesn't know why he pilots. She's like, what are you, stupid? You don't have a reason? She's like, that's just running away for you not admitting it. And then he says, fine, then maybe I want to be praised by my father. He praised me for the first time in my life today. I believe it's the first time praise has made me happy. And just praise, the first time that praise has made him happy because it came from his father. And I like that she looks back at him like it's a really nice, sweet moment, right? It's really soft and good. I like it a lot. And he's like, I wonder if my father finally approves of me. And we see him doing the thing with the hand. And I like that a lot. I think that's really cool. I'm like, well, that's a really good tie-in. And it gives Asuka and Shinji a genuine connection, right? It gives them a moment where they genuinely connect with one another. And because we don't know it as the audience yet, if you've never seen the show, but Asuka has a big thing about her parents and their rejection and approval of her. So this is a really cool tie-in with that. I like it a lot. He's like, maybe it's just like Masato-san said. And he like grips the hand there. I like it. And she's like, you really are stupid. But no, I like that. I think that was a really good scene. That's probably one of my favorites in the movie. It's really good. It's a great scene. Good times. So yeah, so then they come in with the food and everything. The best thing about being in school is all the food. And at this point, when he brings in the food, I was like, oh, we're getting to episode 18. We're getting to where Toji's gonna die. I was like, we're gonna get to that, aren't we, in this? And that's where I thought we were going. Nope. No. And so they're setting up Shinji making the dinner for everybody. And we have again, since there's no rivalry between Kaji and Masato and Asuka and Masato share facial cleansers and stuff. It's cute. Shinji's making them food. He's making dishes for all of them, and he makes a special one for Rei. It's really good, right? And so it shows Asuka eating the food that Shinji made. I like it. And she looks over, she's like, well, it's not that great today. Like, it's lost some flavor from his slacking off. And so then we have Hikari coming in, asking if she can eat with them. And she's like, oh. She's like, well, you're welcome to. I'm sharing my lunch with you. And she's like, that's okay. I brought my own. And that's really cute. I like Asuka's little blush where she's like, I guess you can sit here. I think that's really cute. I like it. But then Shinji offers her a bento box and says, I made this for you. It seems like you never eat. So here you go. And she's like, oh, thank you. And has the blush. I love this. The Shinji and the lunch. Shinji and lunch. That whole bit, I loved that a lot. That was really, really cute. I love all this extra slice of life stuff that's happening in the movie. I'm all about. I'm like, give me all of this. I would love it. And she's like, your name's Hikari? She's like, you can have whatever's left. Like, she doesn't want to eat the rest of it. And then we have Masato eating the rest of her meal, right? And that's when Kaji comes over. And he's like, I heard Shinji-kun's been making your meals. You were never much of a cook. And I like that we get this little bit with them together. And she's like, let me get back to my work. I'm not going to flirting with you. It's funny, right? And so we have in this like state-of-the-art nerve cafeteria, which is really cool. He's like, you're working hard as ever. That's one of your qualities and one of your weaknesses. Establishing that Masato working too much is what makes her weak too, because she doesn't have a life outside of it. She's like, well, my schedule's full of obligations. She's like, oh. It's funny. She's trying to like get him to, I love that Kaji's just like, none of my business. Like, can you resist that mug? And she's like, I love it. I'm going to get a shot of that real quick, because that's really good. Yeah. Kaji over here with the dreamy eyes. He's just putting the moves on her without putting the moves on her. I'm still amazed we got like nothing out of this movie between them. I really thought we would. But we don't. Nope. Which is fine. Maybe we'll get some in the third film. I don't know. But yeah, we go back to Rei's apartment. Again, amazing. And we see that she has like, she cleaned everything. Like she cleaned the chopsticks, she cleaned the little grass that's decoration, the bowl. She cleaned the whole 9 yards. And then is in her bed and said, thank you. Words of gratitude. Words I've never used. Because she's never had a reason to thank anyone. She says, I've never said them to him. Yep, okay. Which, I love that scene. I love that. And so then we go back to the classroom and everything and do all that. And Rei's missing. And meanwhile, we cut to her in the tank, right? In the test tube. And she has like a little collar around her neck that says Rei 2 to tell the audience this is the second Rei, just to let you know. There's no other reason she's really wearing it, just to give that information. But then, yeah, Gendo, again, it's so damn creepy that Gendo just stands there and stares at her in the tube. And then when you see it in high definition and animation, you're like, this is so freaking bizarre. He even has a chair there. He has a chair. Again, he has a Shinji-like chair, right? Gendo and his Shinji chair. It's like a Shinji, like the chair that Shinji sits in episodes 25 and 26. That's the chair. Except Gendo has it in front of her tank so that Gendo can just sit there and watch her naked, like floating. What's the point? And he's like, let's go eat. And she's like, sure. The dinner scene. I put that on my list. I freaking love the dinner scene. The dinner scene and the fact that this is a plot point. I'm here for. Oh my God, the dinner scene. So candlelight, they're having the candle, sharing that here, the little tea light. There's like multiple tables in this, like they converted Gindo's office into like a restaurant dining room. There's like multiple tables, but their table only has 2 seats and no one's at the other tables. And there's like a waiter out there in the corner. What an awkward time he must be having, just being like, here's this guy and this creepy guy with this school-age girl eating food. None of my business though. But she asks him, she's like, Commander Akari. He says, what is it? And she says, are meals fun? Yeah. His answer is yeah to everything, just showing how socially inept he is to have a conversation. He cannot make small talk to save his life. Rei Ayanami is making better small talk than Gendo Ikari. He's like, yeah. She's like, well, do you enjoy eating with others? Yeah. After some time. And she says, does it make you happy to have food cooked for you? And he says, yeah. And then she says, Commander Ikari, next time, would you like to have a meal with Ikari-kun and the others? And then we see her meal is like a nerve, like juicy, like Capri Sun, a nerve Capri Sun, and then a bottle of water, and it's just a mound of pills. And that's her meal. And then we cut over to him, and he's eating like bread with steak. And he's like, no, I don't have the time. But then he sees her, and he sees Yui. And she says, darling, please take care of Shinji. I don't know how I feel about that line. I don't know how I feel about it. Because he clearly is not taking care of Shinji. He's not fulfilling his wife's wishes. And so he tells her, yeah. He just looks back at her and he says, all right, I will. And she has a genuine like smile on her face, like, yeah. But I'm like, Gendo, if your wife is telling you to take care of your son, you're not doing it. I mean, it's great to build up on Gendo's character, especially what we find out later, but it's just like, that scene is so bonkers, but I love it. I freaking love that dinner scene. And so we go back to running the simulation tests. And again, the animation is like steps up a notch, right? And so, yeah, everything is calm and peaceful. There's no angels. Masato's spinning around. Shinji, we've had these scenes in the anime where Shinji's like thinking about Rei, right? And then we have them like, they're like, I don't know if you should say this, but the damage we've sustained could hinder using them in upcoming battles. Like they talk about how, yeah, the angels are, the Evas are a little bit, you know, under the weather, and so it's gonna be hard to use them. And so they say, why don't we just disregard the Vatican Treaty? The Vatican Treaty is weird. I'm meh about the Vatican Treaty. I'm gonna put it right here. I don't think that was brought up in the anime. I don't think that was ever brought up in the anime. But the Vatican Treaty is the idea that they can only use 3 Evangelions per country with no spare units to use. I'm like, well, clearly, I think the other countries like disobeyed that when they made the Eva series for End of Evangelion. But it seems like a cop-out for them to put aside the O2 unit until Mari can use it. It seems just like kind of a cop-out, right? It's like they can't really revise it. They, despite having lost the O5 unit, Europe and Russia are involving Asia in various demands. Like, okay. So it shows them like trying to heal up Shinji's unit, right? There's too much to do before we can even salvage mankind. And so meanwhile, we cut back to Shinji on the rooftop. And then, okay, Mari coming out of nowhere just to land on Shinji. There was no point. She just lands on Shinji so that his face can be in her boobs. That is literally her purpose. And to establish that she knows Shinji. And she also like jettisons down in a school uniform, but she's never properly introduced to the class as a transfer student. Why? And so then he's like, who the hell are you? And she's like, oh, my glasses. I can't find my glasses. Okay, Velma. And then all we do, again, gratuitous shot. There's like two in here where it's like, first of all, it's her with her boobs in Shinji's face. And then it's like her butt. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Are you all right? And he's just like, who the hell are you? Like, she doesn't say, all she says is Mari here. I landed off target. And it's like, oh, I'm in a school of some sort. Like, she's not even going to school there, but she's in a school uniform. Why? You told me to enter Japan covertly. Can't you people work this out? Be there for my extraction later. Okay, thanks. So, she's supposed to be covertly in Japan, I guess. So, she's supposed to be covert. Let's see. She's supposed to be covertly in Japan. Okay. And we get her name. That's all that we do in that shot. Grab that. Ugh. That's like literally all she's there to do. She glomps Shinji and like crawls up to him like a cat woman and gets next to him and says that he smells nice. So like, what the fudge? Why? Go back. Why didn't she just like step over and why'd she crawl to him? And then why'd she tell him he smells nice and then disappears? You smell like LCL. Like, nice Axe body spray, kid. You're interesting. You've not spoken a word or said anything or given any inclination that you're interesting other than you smell like an Eva. Okay. She's like, don't tell anyone about this, nerves puppy. And she gives him his like radio player back. And he doesn't tell anybody about her, which is the funny thing. He doesn't tell a soul about her. He's just like, what the fudge? And he's like, that was weird. Yeah, like that was weird. And then we have track 27, which starts, which is like, odd, what is this? He's like, why? I'm not used to this. Okay. So the milk coffee. He's like, yo, want to go on a date sometime? Okay. In the original anime, I'm gonna put Kaji's pansexuality. I'm here for it. It's fine. I'm all about it. It's great. But yeah, he's like, why don't we go on a date? In the anime, it was leading up to this that he had been talking to Shinji and he was like, oh, let's go get tea. And he's like, I don't want to go on a date with you. And he's like, shrugs it off. But here he just comes out and says he want to go on a date. And Shinji's like, I'm a guy. And he's like, no problem. And he like puts his hand on top of Shinji's and says, gender has nothing to do with love. And goes to kiss him! I mean, I have nothing against Kaji being pansexual. That's great. It's very reminiscent of Kaworu. Kaworu putting his hand. If we don't get a Kaworu hand shot with Shinji and that was our replacement to that, I'm not going to be happy about it. I mean, Kaworu going to kiss Shinji, I'm like, the boy's 14. Easy there, Tiger. But he makes it all a joke, right? He makes it a joke and he's like, I'm just kidding. And Shinji blushing. He's like, here you go. Again, Shinji blushing. Is Shinji our bisexual king? I think so. I think that was our hint, but you know, whatevs. So then we go to this thing that's like RK, something RK, and it says Kaji. And Shinji's shirt's hanging from it. And it's the garden that they're like picking the weeds and stuff from, right? I do love that it leads to the garden scene with Shinji and Shinji like smelling the earth and that scent of the earth, like what it smells like. Like we talked about the marine life before and like the idea of what the second impact has affected. And so we talked about the marine life and Shinji's like smelling the earth there. So I do like the garden scene. I do like that. That part's fun. This part where Kaji talks about the watermelons. I'm glad that they didn't leave that out, right? I'm glad they included it. And him talking about being an adult, being crafty is just about right. And Shinji's like, I don't know about this being an adult business. And so he's like, gardening is my hobby. To create and grow something is a great thing. You can see all sorts of things and learn from them. Fun things, for example. And Shinji's like, well, what about painful things too? Like, you know, because you may fail, right? And Kaji says, well, do you dislike painful things? He's like, yeah, I don't like them. He's like, have you found something you enjoy doing? And he doesn't want to say, because I mean, the only thing he's really doing is being the Eva pilot. But does he enjoy it, right? So it's a nice little callback to that and tie into it, right? He's like, well, that's fine too. People who understand pain know how to be kind to others. Which is true, because if you understand pain, you know what that feels like, and you know it feels terrible, so you're okay with being kind to others because you don't want them to go through that same thing. So that part's really good. I like that. I liked that quite a bit. But yeah, it's different from being weak. Yeah, being kind is not being weak, right? And he's trying to explain that to Shinji, and I do like that. So he asks if he likes Katsuragi, and he's very like, I love that shot of Kaji. It's very good there. Where he's like, do you like her? And he's like, oh, well, Masato-san, she's not a bad person. I don't dislike her. And he's like, protect her for me. And I'm kind of like, whoa, all right, so Kaji's anticipating he's going to die and leave Shinji to protect Katsuragi. Okay. All right. It's not something I can do. It's something only you can do. Okay. Which is funny because Kaji ends up watching over her later when there's the attack from the One Angel, but interesting. So we go back to Rei's apartment again. Just keep going back there. I love it. And we see her like in the kitchen, and it's so ominous when she first raises the knife up. She's like in there cutting, and she like raises the knife. I'm like, it's almost hilarious because you're like, what in the world? Well, I thought for a second, I'm like, is she going to go on a rampage? Is she going to stab Kaji? Is she going to stab him? Is that what's going to happen? That's what I thought for a second. But yeah, so we tie into the other apartments where everybody's like got all their stuff out, their blankets and everything. There are missiles right in front of the apartments, which is a thing. And then again, showing the life of Tokyo 3. There's missiles in front of the apartment. There's tanking trucks with stuff going across it as people walk on their way to school and work. There's that. There's people like going through all the bicycles and everything because they don't have cars. It's very interesting. And then we see lots of the idea. Saw lots of things crossing the threshold, right? And here we have Rei deciding to be kinder and more open, and she crosses into the room, kind of like Shinji crossed into Masato's apartment, and kind of says, good morning. And everybody's like, she actually greeted us? What's happening? Ayanami of all people? Like, what's going on? And he's like, are you okay? And then she gives him like the invitation for dinner. She's like, speaking, I'll tell you once. Because what did she say there? What's she saying? He's like, are you okay? Are you feeling better now? As she settles down. And she says, I'm fine today. And then he asks, what happened to your hand where she's been chopping up the food? And she's like, Dr. Akagi bandaged it for me. And she's like, what did she do to you? And she's like, it's a secret. I'll tell you once my speaking gets a little better. And it's so cute. Like, I like Rei being like open and kind. Like, that's really nice. I like that. And Asuka's like, what? Like, what? I like it. It's very cute. Right? So yeah. So then we have talking about how Rei has changed. And it's unbelievable that the girl would do things for the sake of others. I wonder why. And then Masato's like, well, isn't it love? And Akagi's like, that's impossible. She's a clone. Like, you know. But meanwhile, Asuka's doing her cooking in a bra. Like, put a damn shirt on. I feel like someone's like mother. I'm like, put a shirt on. Like, even when you're at home alone, like, it's just for fan service. I don't like it. But I do like Rei opening up, right? Like, she opens up a little bit more than she has in the show here. And Masato, of course, is like, isn't it love? And Akagi's like, she's a clone. That's not possible. But then, yeah, then we have Asuka getting in on it, right? Saying, I wonder if he would like it milder. Like, she's making something. So yeah, I do like the idea that they're making stuff for Shinji, right? That they're trying to be nice for Shinji and make up for him. And Masato's like, oh, what are you doing? What you doing there? What all? So you guys are all just cooking for Shinji, huh? And they're like, no, it's fine. But yeah, like there's some gratuitous shots in here that I was like, they're like, okay. And they're like, why are you guys getting romantic all of a sudden? And she's like, it has nothing to do with being romantic, right? And she's like, well, Rei seems to be planning something grander. And Asuka's like, what are you talking about? She wants to be the Cupid that will bring Shinji closer to Commander Ikari. So yeah, so the thing of it is, Masato's figured it out that she's having this dinner party so that Shinji can get closer to his dad. Which is a nice sentiment. I wish it had happened. Can you imagine what that dinner party would have been like? It would have been like Game of Thrones-esque. I wish we could have had that, but we can't have nice things. Her strategy is a meal party where she does the cooking. It's straightforward and this might actually work. Getting father and son back on good terms will require a lot of effort. And Asuka's like, why is she doing this for Shinji? It's meant to be a surprise, so don't let him know. So anyway, we cut to this deal that happens with the Unit 4 disappearing, and it's shown there. Things go crazy. And they say Nerve 2. Yep. It was annihilated, though, 4 branch, and then we have Masato out of the tub. Didn't he? She could have been in the tub when she answered it. She answered it in the tub for the anime, I'm pretty sure. But they're like, this is the dad from T plus Ground Zero. Yep, and the base was evaporated, breaking down AT field from a satellite. The exact details are unknown, but it was at the explosion center. Okay. Unit 4 was a test bed model with new internals designed to tackle problems with operational time length. So meaning that they had designed it that it would be able to go beyond the 5 minutes, and so that was the one that was taken out. Funny that. And she's like, those who do know. And they're like, the O4 unit, a test used to obtain developmental data for the next generation of Evas, was taken out. Yep. However, and I do love the scene that we have of Kaji spying on them and listening in. I do love that scene. That scene's so good. It's very reminiscent of Masato spying on them later on we see in End of Evangelion. It's great. But yeah, so they basically decide to bring in the O3 unit, right? And we have like see it flying overhead and all the clouds and the lightning and everything. And I love this scene at the vending machine where they have like the ice pops and everything, and they're just going on about who will be the pilot of the O3 unit. And I was waiting for it to be Toji. I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to get Toji in on this. Like, they set it up where he's going to be, like, all set to go. He's going to be the pilot. It's going to be the end of him. But no. Like, we have them playing basketball and everything. And then they find out that Toji's like, he's like, I didn't win anything. And we see this girl looking at the birds. Mari looking at the birds flying overhead. Like, anticipating what's to come. Like, where's she been? What's she doing? Why is she, like, what is this? What is her purpose? What is she doing in Japan? She's not at school, so what's she doing? And Seal's like, we lost O5 and their unit, and now we've lost O4. So the loss is a major setback to the advancement of the project. It is within the scope of amendment. There won't be any problems. And they're imploring you to take Unit 3. The government of your country has also been cooperative. It's a state-of-the-art weapon. It'll serve fighting needs nicely so we can eliminate the angels even now, right? Even though I don't have faith in an untested unit. If you could increase the budget to repair Unit 00, though, and they're like, nope. They're like, the role of the prototype model will end very soon. They're like, we're about to decommission the OO unit. Why would we get funds to make it better? We don't need it. There are other matters that should be prioritized. The true Evangelion we desire. Its birth and Lilith's resurrection will signify the time of our covenant. So basically the Mark 6 is what's going to be like the Eva that's born that's going to start this whole process, right? The whole thing about the instrumentality. We have to perform the necessary rituals before then. For the Human Instrumentality Project. And then they all leave. The monoliths go and leave Gendo. He's like the true Evangelion. And then we get like out of the green room and there's Fuyu-chan. Like the fact that this was all a green room is insanity. For the purpose of the current units, we have to pave the way for its completion. Okay. And that's the Mark 6. So it's not false gods they want to create, but a true god at last. So instead of creating the Eva units that are kind of like false gods, they want to create the Mark 6 and make Kaworu into a god, I guess. Maybe that's their plan. But Gendo's basically doing that with Shinji, except he wants to like insert himself in that. Interesting. We must hasten the awakening of Unit 1. Okay. And so then they took out the core from O2's unit and sealed it away. Why not? Yeah. And so this part's interesting, where they're like the Vatican Treaty, where we can only have 3 at a time. We're getting the O3 unit, so we can't have the O2 unit. We have to decommission it. And so we're going to just put it away until we can use it, right? And we have the IPEA there. Okay. So they have this whole IPEA where it's sealed up at. Interesting. But that was also, the IPEA was at the very beginning, right? It was up there with the units that were tied to Mari. So, fascinating. Fascinating. And they're like, even though nobody can pilot it but me, we have backups for everything, including the pilots. And so Asuka's like, she wants to be the pilot of the Eva. She's like, it's the only place in the world for me is being an Eva pilot. And so then we get the elevator scene with Asuka and Rei. And I am a little bit sad. They did not make it as long as it was in the anime, or even the recap was not as long. I'm a bit disappointed. But I mean, at this point we've seen it twice, so why make it as long for a third time? Why do that? But we had the same conversation about Rei not being a doll and her being bonded to the Eva unit, and Asuka like trying to fight back and say why she's doing what she's doing and blah, blah, blah. And so then she asks, but this part is different where she asks, do you like Shinji? She asks Rei straight out if she likes him. And Rei's like, well, I don't know. She's like, well, just say what you mean. Like, make yourself clear already. And she's like, I really don't know. She's like, being with Shinji makes me warm and content. So I want him to feel the same way. That's her answer. She's like, I want him to get along with Commander Akari and be warm and content too, I think. And Asuka's like, well then fine, I understand. You do like him. And get all tsundere about it, right? And she's like, you really are an ultra idiot beyond help. That means you're in love with him. Well, it means that she likes him, right? She does like him, but I don't know about like romantic love. I think Rei, likes Shinji for reasons, but I don't think romantic love is truly, I don't think it's the same, right? So then we cut to Shinji in his room, looking forward to the meal party. I was too! I was looking forward to it, even though he doubts Rei's cooking. He's looking forward to it. And it's like, it'd be nice if Father could come. It's like, oh, I wish too, man. I wish too! And then we have the whole thing with, does that say Dionysus? Is that what it says, Dionysus? The base built, the dummy plug? Okay, the dummy solo system. Interesting. To assist the pilot. Yep. Meanwhile, we have Kaji and Masato, and they're like seen at the bar, which is really cute. I like it. He's like something that was tightly sealed and directly sent from Golgotha base. None of us know what it really is. So we kind of cut out the whole Lilith and Adam reveal in the basement because that was between these two characters. But we kind of cut over that and then get this like bar scene with them together instead. She's like, I don't know why they'd let them control something so dangerous. And he's like, so you think it should be left in control of humans? And she's like, you trust Shinji-kun a lot. And you trust him because he's Shinji-kun. And she's like, that aside, give me some more tips from the higher-ups. Also, let it be known, when she answers that phone, Kaji was totally checking her out. Like, totally checking her out. He was just like, okay, good. Glad that everything's still good. I'm honestly amazed after this scene that we did not have a sex scene between Kaji and Masato. I really thought we were going to. Maybe in the third rebuild we will, but I really was expecting it to come and we didn't get it. I do like them together though. It's good. And so they're supposed to detect and choose the Unit 3 pilot. And that's interesting. They end up picking Asuka. And the day of the test is the day of the meal party. Of course it is. Of course it is. And so, yeah, it looks like she's about to call her mom or whatever. And so then we have the one unit show up and everything. And we have, like, REI getting a checkup and everything. And then we see Asuka going to the base. And REI wants to leave her voicemail. Toji gets the best out of this whole series. Toji's sister gets better. They leave the hospital. He leaves with her. I mean, that's a convenient way to get Toji out. But I will say, Toji gets the happy ending. Which is great. I love it. So, in the scope of the movie, it makes sense why they replaced Toji with Asuka. One, because Asuka has the bigger crux relationship with Shinji and will have more of a dynamic impact. Like I said in the last movie, because we don't have all those moments with Toji to establish his friendship with Shinji, although it gets pretty well established in this movie, to be honest, it makes sense why they chose not to have Toji for it. But also, Asuka still needs to be a player in the movie, but she needs to be taken out of commission for Mari to come in and do whatever the hell she was doing in this. And so the only way to get her out of the movie conveniently, since we haven't spent the time to have her have the emotional breakdown from the one angel, that's not happened. We've not taken the time to do that. We didn't have the time to set up her and her mom's relationship. We haven't delved into her backstory. We haven't done Magma Diver. We haven't done enough with Asuka's character to establish all the psychological trauma she has inside of her. So because we haven't done that, we need to take her out of commission in the most convenient way possible so that Mari can come in and do whatever with this beast mode is going on. And so that Asuka's out of the way when Shinji and REI merge. So for that to happen, we need her to become, I guess, the 10th angel in this case instead of the 13th. We need her to become the angel. So it's like, okay. But then she gets the voicemail from REI. She gets the voicemail from REI that says, thank you. And she actually smiles. I actually like that. The muted colors make this scene look a lot more ominous than a lot more ominous to match the tone. But I actually liked her little smile at REI's thank you. Like, that part was really good. That was sweet. And she's like, oh, she's stupid. But that just shows us that, no, we know what Asuka's actually thinking in that moment, right? It's just me wanting to pilot an Eva. And she has kind of the same expressions and the same gestures that Shinji makes as they drive away, which is interesting. And she's like, if I end up liking the O3 unit, paint it red for me. And so like, oh, good morning, Ida-kun. They're like, oh, where's Shinji? Where's Toji? And they're like, oh, well, isn't this just great? And so, yeah, they cut out, they show him, like, going off. They're like, oh, sorry, my sister, there's no me. My sister appreciates it. And so I want to get that little picture of him, like, they're like, absent is Shikinami. And they're like, where's Toji? It's like, his sister's being discharged from Odawara Hospital today. And he's like, I see. And, like, Toji has a message for you. And there's no need to worry. My sister also appreciates it. So, yeah, it shows them getting discharged. Toji's got the same... Toji has the outfit on that he was going to wear in episode 18, but he doesn't wear it. So it just shows him and his sister. Toji gets the happy ending. And so, yeah. And then he's like, isn't that great? He gets to be with his sister. And we actually see Shinji have, like, a genuine, kind smile on his face. Like, he's so happy. He's like, yeah, I'm glad Toji's okay. And so he's like, oh, are you visiting Ayanami today? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I'm so jealous. I just love that. It's so cute. Like him and Ida and them. It's great. But we actually get to see the angel take over the unit. So I'm also glad that we get to see the Unit 3 take over. I like that a lot. Because I was always wondering, ever since the anime, I was like, I wonder what that would have looked like. Like, what did Toji see when the angel was taken over? And so, honestly, if you're going to redo a series like this, now's the time to show your audience something you weren't able to show them before. And this is a prime example of it. They actually get to show us what it looks like when the unit gets taken over. And it's really freaking freaky. But you know what I really don't like? The test plug suit. The test suit. What the hell? Why? Even Asuka calls it out. She's like, isn't this revealing? There was no reason for it to be see-through like that. What the fudge? Like, it's just showing her boobs and like, it's just low enough. It's not necessary. She has her puppet doll with her, which is kind of creepy. Yep, she has her little Asuka puppet doll. And she has the phone and everything. I do find it a little weird that the screens that have the contact numbers and stuff look just like the seal monoliths. They're kind of weird. She also has body cream, which I mean, some chafing might go on, you know. I can't imagine. But yeah, like the suit, the test suits, like why isn't it just like, why does it have to be this way? There was no reason for that. And it's a very long sequence. So yeah. And so then Asuka has this monologue about like all the friendships she's made and blah, blah, blah. Asuka's monologue. I'm not the biggest fan with it. Maybe I'll tie it in more with the meh, but it was just a very on the nose moment where you're like, we know where this is headed. She's about to get taken over by the EVA unit. I'm like, they're not going to kill her off. She's one of the main characters. She's one of the trio. They're not going to kill her off. I honestly thought in this movie, if they killed Toji off, I wouldn't be surprised. Would not have been surprised if they'd killed Toji off. Would have been like, oh, yep, there it is. But no, she's like, I like the red color, which is funny because, you know, Rei hates it. And so then we have the angel actually taking over, right? Which I am glad that we get to see that. She's like, I can actually smile thanks to everything. And then the angel taking over is freaky. It's like everything gets red and all of a sudden like she can't move. And then we see all the little crosses and there's like the angel wings sprouting her forwards. And then it all goes towards like the chuckling of like the little rays. Nope, it's not good. Nope. And then we see the angel take over. The mental decontamination. Yep. And then, oh my God, what gets me though is that oh my God. So they're showing that the angel's going berserk, that the Eva's going berserk with the angel there and the contamination, right? And so then we have like the explosion and everything, right? Of the base, right? And Shinji's like, what? And we see like this car zoom around that's got Gendo in it on the phone. And the funny thing is, it was like on the way to the dinner party, it was going right past Shinji and just drives past him, doesn't pick him up, nothing. And Shinji's sitting there with like a gift in his hand. Like the dinner party, I'm just going to say, no dinner party after what we were promised. How dare they? I got my hopes up for that dinner party. Although the Gendo turnaround scene was freaking hilarious. And they just left Shinji. Didn't even bother to pick him up. And then the rice and everything boils over. And she had the cups sitting out. She had the 4 cups for Asuka and her and Gendo and them. Had the soup and stuff ready to go. Tragic. Her house was like the brightest it ever been. Tragedy. Absolute tragedy. So yeah, basically the rest of this plays out pretty much like episode 18. But I will give it this. I will give the series this. It does give Shinji a lot more credibility into wanting to not hurt Asuka because it's Asuka. And he's like, no, I can't do this, right? And then the dummy plug thing, on the one hand, everything's pretty much the same, except for like the hands that rip out the back of the unit look like human arms and they're really creepy and disturbing. So there's that. Gross. But the thing that gets me is that when they activate the dummy plugs, this thing comes up over Shinji, and it's like a robot. Like it mounts his hands and locks them in place to the unit, but then it puts this screen over his eyes, almost like it's a user, right? It says the dummies system. And he can't see anything, right? That's the thing. It takes over and he can't see. He's like, what are you doing, father? And so they transfer control. But I'll be honest, I don't like the way the dummy system works in this, because Shinji doesn't see anything that's going on. And while, yeah, that means there's less trauma for Shinji, which is a good thing. On the one hand, there's less trauma for Shinji, but on the other hand, I'm like, but there's less trauma for Shinji, but then at the same time, he doesn't get to see what ends up happening. He's just like, the only way he knows that something is happening with Asuka and that he's like ripping her apart is, the only way he knows this is happening is because he can hear it happening, but he doesn't see anything, right? It's kind of bizarre. And then he like looks over and doesn't see anything. And then there's the song. Okay, there's the song. I don't know how I feel about the songs. I'm torn, right? I'm torn. Because I'm torn. The happy songs. The happy songs that are very End of Evangelion inspired. I feel like whoever made this was like, remember when he had that really creepy song that was playing during like all this bad stuff that was happening and how disturbing it was? What if we did that twice in this movie? Like once, they did it once and then they did it again. In this version, in the next version, I liked it better. In the next version, it made more sense, right? Because it was really trippy. And here, the song about believing in each other and like saying all these happy things while he's screaming for his father to stop, I didn't like it in this version because it takes away from the horror of the scene. It almost makes it comical to me because I'm like, oh, this is just doing like what End of Evangelion did. But I felt like in the anime, this scene is almost beat for beat the exact same as episode 18, except it's with Asuka instead of Toji, and except instead of crushing it in his hand where he can see it, it crushes in his mouth where he can feel it. That's the main difference. But I'm like, I really liked the sound design of episode 18 where it was so like horrific and dark and gritty, and here the happy cutesy song is supposed to make it more disturbing, but I don't think it has the same effect. Now at the end scene, it's a lot more effective there, I think. But then yeah, he bites. He's like, what's that sound? And he can hear it crushing. But I don't think it's as impactful as it was in the original. And then Rei's just there. Rei's just there in the studio because she wasn't sent out like she was in the anime. She's just standing there, came like, oh, this is what our dinner party was canceled for? Oh, okay, cool. I wish she could have seen what was happening. I think it would have made more sense with him attacking later on. And there's a damn rainbow! There's a damn rainbow over it. I'm gonna get a picture of that. The rainbow, the most poorly timed rainbow that you could imagine. And so yeah, Masato wakes up, sees Kaji, and then I do like Shinji above the pyramid. I do like where before Shinji had already bursted into nerve and was there straightforward. I do like Shinji with the pyramid because it is a top nerve. It is a nice tie back to End of Evangelion where he like builds the sand castle and then he stomps on it to destroy it. That's a cool callback to that. I like it. I think that works pretty good. So then they're like, well, what do we do? And they make Shinji collapse, right? And then when they make him collapse by over flooding the LCL fluid and he just like falls down and slides down the pyramid, then we have the image of him on the train. And we see him like going back to the train station. I do like the train scene. I do like this train scene a bit because he's going over like, Ikari-kun, you're always listening to that, aren't you? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's something my father used back in the day. Just like the glasses you have, Ayanami. And that little kid's like the kid's like there popping around. It's kind of creepy. He's like, he decided he didn't need it anymore and left it behind. So this part, I'm going to put here, like, I'm kind of torn with it. I I like that we have that Shinji's tape player was Gendo's that he discarded. And he keeps it, right? He keeps it as a reminder of his dad. I like that aspect of it. I do think that's a cool tie into the tape player. It gives it some significance that's tied to Gendo, and it's a nice connection to Rei and the glasses tying it. He's like, it's something he discarded just like me. And we see the kid standing there with the bag right beside him, like the image of that. I like that a lot. I do like that. I think that's pretty cool. I think it's a neat little tie-in with this character. He left it behind at my teacher's place, so I took it. Again, we don't know who the teacher is. When I close off my ears, I close off my heart too. This part here, it's a little on the nose. Again, we talked about this in the last film, that the series, the TV series, is ambiguous enough that you can make these assumptions, like what he's telling us as the audience. You can kind of make them, but it's very show not tell. You see it happening, and then through the conversations, you can kind of read between the lines and get that's what he's saying. Here, the movie just comes outright and says it and spells it out for you. And while that's, if you're somebody that doesn't want to deal with all that abstract gobbledygook, you can be like, good, get down to brass tacks. But if you're somebody that likes that ambiguity and likes deciphering that and figuring it out, and you think it's fun, this kind of like takes that away. It's like, nope, here's the meaning. This is why I'm doing things. This is the symbolism that you should be getting. And it's like, I don't know if I kind of like it spelled out like that for us in black and white quite so much, but I don't hate it. I'm kind of just about it, right? Then I don't have to face the world that I hate. And it is said that he hates the world. In this case, he hates it because the father that lives in there hates him. It has these frightening angels in the Eva. It makes you do terrible things. Your friends are hurt. Your parents don't need you. So Shinji actually comes out and says, Shinji hates the world. Which is, it's the world that I hate, and I'm rejecting it. And he throws away the tape player. He's like, I thought my father would protect me from this world that I hate if I had this with me, but I was deluding myself. And then Rei's like, well, didn't you try to understand him? And he's like, yes, I did, but you didn't do anything. And he's like, I did try to. And he gets really mad at her. And then there's the kid standing there, and he's like, it's his dad's fault. Wasn't it him who abandoned me? And like this, you're going to run away from things that you hate again. And he's like, what's wrong with that? And every time the kid moves around and the thing gets kind of creepy, what's wrong with running away from things that you hate? So yeah, he spells out that he hates the world in this movie. So if the instrumentality happens and Shinji chooses to screw the world, we got a heads up about it here. We got the heads up here. Whereas in the anime, you kind of wonder, you're like, does Shinji really hate the world? Is he gonna sacrifice it? No, he seems like he's gonna sacrifice it right off the bat here. So also, why are there just like, he wakes up and looks around and then realizes that there's all these guys surrounding him. And he's like, no more. Again, we have the guys from before telling him no more. Like when he said back when he was like at the edge of the road and he couldn't go any further, he's like, no more, let me go back. Here again, he's saying that to the guys in black. Weird, right? So weird. But okay, they discover the remnants of, all the bones, the rib cage, everything. Ugh. What's left of O3 unit, it's so gross. And then they retrieve from the blood from the one unit. And we see, although traces of cellular contamination have disappeared. Oh my gosh. We cannot rule out the possibility of mental contamination from the angels. So yeah, Asuka is like in this coffin iron lung after that. Oh my God. Our only option is keep her quarantined. They're not going to kill her, are they? She's a precious specimen. It won't happen. And then we see Shinji being brought before his dad. He decides he doesn't want to pilot the Eva again. He's deciding to leave. He's going to sacrifice everything. And then he does throw away the unit. Again, I'm really torn about this because on the one hand, he throws away player and Rei takes it. Okay. That player's going to come back in the next movie. It has to. Because at first I was like, why'd she strap it to her thigh? Like when she takes it onto the unit, I'm like, why didn't you leave it at your apartment if you're going to give it back to Shinji? But now that her and Shinji are merged, I have a feeling that that cassette player is going to come back and be important somehow. We'll see. But I was like, wait a minute, why are you doing this? And so, yeah, but he dumps out the tape player and she takes it with her. Right? And they're all like, I guess we're back where we started. Back to the beginning. And Masato tries to give him the phone with the messages from it. And Shinji just rejects them outright. He's like, no. And Masato comes out and says, she's like, yeah, we put all our burdens on you, but we really had faith in you. And she's like, just come on, don't leave. And she tries to tell him about Rei and the commander and everything and the dinner party and everything that was planned. And Shinji, he's just not having any of it. She's like, she wanted both of you to smile together. And he's like, I'm never going to smile with anyone again. Shinji's just like, nope, done, not having any more. Like, Shinji just pieces out. We had emo Shinji come to play, right? And then he takes the train to leave. And that's when the state of emergency happens, right? And so meanwhile, there's an angel. So we have the IPEA open up, right? Where O2's unit was sealed. And again, we didn't need to see Mari's boobs getting into this suit, even though she said it's freezing. Yeah. And the suit and everything. And her with the suit, she's like, it's the new suit, all right. My boobs fit perfectly and it feels great. And then there's another gratuitous shot there. Right. Yep. And so we see that Mari's suiting up with the O2 unit because now that the Vatican Treaty, now that the O3 unit's destroyed, we can take the O2 unit. Again, this was all conveniently done to let Mari fight because now, because of this whole Vatican Treaty thing, the O3 unit is out, so we only have 2 units again, so we can bring the O2 unit back. Well, now we don't have a pilot. Shinji's gone. The dummy plugs aren't working. Rei is in no condition. Rei could fight, but the O unit isn't ready yet. So it's a perfect excuse to bring Mari into the story, right? And then we go up to the damn moon, and we have the suit thing. I love he reaches up to the earth and does the suit thing. I'm like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, we have Kaworu, like, I don't consider that fan service because we don't really see anything. His suit is dark, right? But yeah. And then he's just like on top of the OO unit. And he's like, the time has come. I was waiting for Kaworu to come in and I was losing hope that he'd show up. And then in the final hours, he does arrive indeed. But yeah. So this angel, the teddy bear angel shows up. Does not look like a teddy bear anymore. It looks pretty terrifying. And so Toji and all them. Okay, also, just going to say that we get a shot of the city, right? Where everybody's evacuating. And she's like, it's not us who issued the launch order. Okay, so that is curious. Like, who issued the launch order? If it wasn't Nerve to let Mari go fight. Was it Kaji? Because Kaji was kind of tied with her. Is that what's going on? I'm thinking that it's Kaji that issued the order, but that's interesting. And so then, yeah, nothing is working. They fire all these nukes at the bear angel. It blows up. But look, I was like, look, Toji's protecting Hikari. I was like, he's got his arms wrapped around her, protecting her. The school rep. I'm about this timeline. If Toji and Hikari have moments together, I'm like, okay, my Toji Hikari shipper heart is full. I was very happy with that. I was like, yes, please. That was good. I liked that a lot. Like him, like watching over her. It's so good. And meanwhile, for some reason in this one evacuation room, Shinji's the only one there. Why? Who knows? But anyway, they go to this angel attack and intercepting it. And the dummy system's not working. And so they're like, O2, he's like, how's communication with O2? The two-way link has been cut. There's nothing we can do. So they can't communicate with Mari. They don't even know who's in it. Okay. But she packed her suit with her from before, right? So she wants to fight alone. So they know that she's in there. They know that Mari's in there, but they don't understand what the deal is. And Mari has the suit that she was given for the O5 unit. So, okay. And then she's like, well, it smells good. Although this Eva smells of someone else, it's not a bad smell. And they're like, the 5th defense. She's like, take care of this quickly or headquarters will go poof. But she has like, her suit is a weird thing where it almost looks like the rib cage and everything. It's kind of looks like an angel. It's bizarre. And she just like goes in guns a-blazing. It's kind of crazy. And then she talks about no progress is made at this point. And she just like goes and grabs another gun. And just like goes into it and says, bastard, not bad at all. And so they try to use a dummy system. It doesn't work. And so she's like, I'll show you the power of an Eva that has abandoned its humanity. I'm like, well, what is this? What is this? This beast mode? Invert mode, codenamed the Beast. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. I don't know. I'm confused by it. That we have this beast mode. I know somebody in the comments is going to be like, here's what the beast mode does. And I'm like, I get what it does. It just like, it allows basically all the restraints and limiters to go out. But then I'm like, does it make you like revert to like instinct or something? But I'm also like, but then it ends up doing like whenever Shinji like goes, she's like, I'll endure it with you. Like, does it make it more animalistic? I don't know. It's just, it's bizarre. It's different, but they're like, oh, and the fact that they didn't know the Evas had functions like that, I'm like, how'd you not know? How did you not know the Evas had functions like that? You've been doing experiments on them for years. You didn't know this power existed? How does this girl know that this power exists? Who's taught her this? Why do you not know that? It's just the idea of it is intriguing, but it's like they're unable to monitor the plug. Its depth has reached negative values. The pilot is fine with entering the contamination zone. It's too dangerous. And she's like, nothing ventured, nothing gained, which is fun, but it's almost like she's like yandere accepting like, I'm going to be a monster, which is kind of a cool concept. I like the idea that Mari's okay with being a monster, but I want more explained with it. I want more developed with it. We just kind of like get her, like, she's like, okay, she's in control of Berserker mode, basically. Which is fine. It's okay. She's okay with the Berserker mode, but she seems like she's still in control of it. It's interesting. But I'm not sure I'm totally on board with it. And then she gets knocked out. And of all places she gets knocked out into, why, where is it? But the one shelter that Shinji's at and that no one else is at. That's where she's at. It's fine. And so then Rei comes in with the nuke. Rei comes in with the nuke at full power. Like she's just gonna, which she does in one of the earlier episodes. And then we see that Mari tries to help her and gets her head knocked off, right? As Rei is sitting there trying to get the nuke in. And of course, Rei she's like, even if Akari-kun won't pilot Eva, I'll make it all right. And she has the tape player strapped to her thing. So I like that Rei is, again, self-sacrificing herself. That part's fine. But, oh my gosh, like she tries to get that nuke in and everything. And then like we see that she's struggling with it, right? And then Mari tries to help her and tries like, I like that she's like a mad dog. She like takes and tries to rip open the AT field like it's plastic. It's crazy, right? And she's like, one more. And then she tries, but it all blows. But then Rei throws her back to blow everything up, right? And of course, the one place that she lands is the shelter that Shinji's in. Okay. the Shinji versus Mari conversation. I'm not a big fan of it. I think that it's, I don't know. Let's go through this, because I remember watching this being like, one, I'm not a big fan of things happening in such a coincidence that seems like a plot contrivance. Like, it seems just for the sake of the plot that this happens. Like, of all places to land, you land in the one bunker that Shinji's in, and Shinji's in it all by himself. Seems a bit convenient, just a wee bit. But okay, we'll go with it. But then, yeah, and Shinji seems like she's like, oh, I'm pretty close to dying, meow. Okay. And she's like, what are you doing here? And she's just like, I guess this explains why we were short one unit. Like, she's sitting here in the O2 unit that looks like a bloody pulp, and Shinji doesn't really have much of a reaction to that. Like this is Asuka's unit, and you would think Shinji would be like, oh my god. But no, he's just staring up at her with this blank expression, and he's just like, he goes, I decide I'm not going to pilot it. I'm like, one, he barely knows her. He doesn't even ask, like, why are you in Asuka's unit? What's going on? He doesn't ask any of those questions. He's just like, I don't want to be a pilot. I'm like, there's about 10 other questions I'd ask before I'd even say that, but okay. And then all the blood, like, seeps around his hand, and she's like, there's someone out there who racks his brain about whether or not to pilot an Eva. And you should hurry up and run. So I'll help you. And this is what I don't like about this scene, is that he says, I'm not going to pilot. And she brings him, she says, you won't have any fun if you keep fretting like that. And she brings him out to the location. So this is what I don't like about the scene, is that when Shinji decided to help Asuka and REI in the beginning, in the actual series, it was a process where Shinji had to make his own decision. And yeah, Kaji had a conversation with him, right? Kaji had a conversation with him in the garden that, yeah, you can run away, or you can help these people and, save this world that I'm, cultivating here. So there was that conversation. But in the end, Shinji made the decision to walk back and go there, right? Shinji made the decision to go back and go there. He left Kaji and went on his own and took his own journey. He does end up going back to Gendo on his own, but he wasn't going to leave the shelter unless Mari physically grabbed him and made him go in this. And in the original, he actually takes off on his own volition and makes his way back there entirely on his own. No one grabs him and makes him go. He does the whole journey himself. Here, Mari has to physically grab him, show him the Evangelion being eaten by the angel, showing him the garden is destroyed, right? So he sees the garden is destroyed, and then sees that the angel... But here, I thought for a second that we saw REI. But here's what we said. Yeah, I thought for a second we see something standing against a rock. Isn't that REI? We see this mouth come out and it eats the Evangelion. I thought that REI was beside the rock. I didn't think she was still in the Eva. I guess she was. I guess that was it. Never mind. And then, yeah. And then it slowly, the angel starts to transform into REI. So I do like the concept of the angels eating the Evas. I do like that. It's a nice little twist. I like the idea that the angels eat the Evas and they slowly start to turn into like the Evangelion. I like that. I think that's a cool twist. But I don't know. And so they're like, now the target's signal is turning into the OO units. It's turning back, so it got us. Dogma won't self-destruct if it gets inside. So they set that up in the last movie. They were like, oh, well, Dogma will self-destruct if the angel gets inside. It won't be Masato and Hyuga making the order. Well, now it's not going to self-destruct because it won't sense an angel. So that's out. It'll be able to reach Lilith with no effort. And it's fusing with the OO unit. It even absorbed the pilot. And so, yeah, you'll die if you don't hurry up and run. So Mari does, to Mari's credit, she does give him the choice. She's like, you can run or you can go save REI. And Shinji does make the choice to go save Rei. And she's like, he left. So what's he gonna do? So to Shinji's credit, I guess to his credit, he does choose to go back, right? It's just Mari physically had to drag him there. So that part I wasn't really crazy about. And plus, I'm like, they barely know each other, so there's not really much of a connection there. I'm like, why does he care what Mari says? They don't even really know each other. She's just shoved her boobs in his face, and that's been it. But Shinji seeing Rei being in danger because she's been eaten by the angel, that part is nice. And I do like the angel has, like, this, like, hair cape now. And it just fires a laser and destroys half of Nerve. Again, Shinji, like, gets knocked out, and he sees the watermelons and everything that's been burnt, and he goes off and heads towards Nerve. He gets there in no time flat. He books it, right? That part, it's like he books it and makes it into, like, the depths of Nerve in no time. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It's fine. The air shaft's completely exposed. It's cool. And the EVA unit is responding, and then Shinji shows up. Now, in this, he's like, why are you refusing me, Yui? I love Gendo's like, Yui, why are you refusing me? She's like, you're trying to put a dummy plug in me. I want my kid. You should know this. And then Shinji showing up saying, let me pilot it. And the spotlight's on him. Let me pilot the O1 unit. And yeah, I love that he's like, what are you doing here? And he grips his hand and says, Father, I'm the pilot of the O1 unit, Shinji Ikari. I mean, what can Gendo say to that? It's like, yep, nope. My Shinji has decided he's going to be the pilot. I'm like, okay. He's going to save Rei. Which they've done a good job in this film of building up Rei and Shinji's relationship, so you can understand why he would want to. And then we see the Eva there, like the Eva angel, and then we see Shinji fighting him, and it's the exact same as before, where we have Gendo splatter with the blood, right? It's the same with that angel attack as before. It's like, okay. And he keeps fighting. It's just a different circumstance. It's the same battle from before, just a different circumstance. Okay. And then Shinji, like, goes after the engine and everything and tries to plug it out. And, and then it pins him, yep. And so then, that shot of, like, the blood and stuff spurting from his mouth, that part was crazy. Like, it just, like, makes it, like, slices at him. Oh, my God. That part where it looks like he's, like, spewing out blood, that was gross. Ugh. So, yeah, so we have the situation that was at the end of episode 19 or 20, wasn't it? Where the Evas went berserk. Wasn't that it? But he says for them to give Ayanami back. And Shinji goes into berserk mode. He has, like, the red eyes and everything. I'm like, oh my God. Shinji's terrifying in this moment. And so we actually, in that moment, see, like, him go berserk. But I don't know. I feel like before it was tied to the train and more to Yui. But here it's Shinji being motivated by Rei. So it's fine. But they're like, what is happening to the O1 unit? And he's, like, all, like, burning up and glowing red, right? And so it, like, the angel tries to attack him, and he puts up the AT field and everything, and then grows the arm back. The animation's gorgeous. The animation in this scene is beautiful, right? As the angel's, like, trying to burst through. And, like, Shinji has, like, with the arm and everything, it's all, like, geometric. It's crazy. The animation's just gorgeous. But then there's, like, this halo that comes above his head, right? As he, like, fires this laser at the angel. So, yeah. And they're like, what is happening? And, like, the arm comes back. There's a halo that comes up because the Evas are part angel anyway. They're cloned from it. And they're like, there's such power in an Eva. Has it transcended human limits? And they're like, yeah, it's the plug depths over. It's reaching critical levels. So they're like, stop, Shinji-kun. At this point, when they say he's not going to become human again, I assume they were meaning that he was going to merge with the Eva, like what he did in the one episode where he was in the goop, right? He was in the soup. He became primordial soup, and then they had to extract him, except we're not doing that in this film. Instead, they're just like, oh, you're going to merge. And he's like, what happens to me doesn't matter. What happens to the world doesn't matter. But Ayanami, He's like, at least Ayanami, I'll save her. So yeah, so again, Shinji don't like the world. He's saying, screw humanity, screw all y'all. It's kind of like the end of episode 25 where they're like, you really don't want to save humanity. But now he's saying he wants to save Ayanami, though, out of all of it. And yeah, he chops up the angel. It all, like, its breast opens up to reveal the S2 engine. There's a cross-shaped explosion because symbolism. And Shinji goes in to, like, and you're like, go, Shinji. And Masato's like, do for the sake of your wishes. Go for it. If you want to save Rei, go save her. And it's like, all right. Sure. Let's do this. And so, yeah. And then he crushes. Basically does the same thing that happened at the end. You think it's going to be the same thing that happened at the end of episode 19 and 20. But instead, he's looking for Ayanami. He's trying to go inside the core to find her. And she's like, I'm already fused with the angel. I can't live anywhere else but here. And she's like, it's fine. If I disappear, I'll be replaced. Which is kind of like, it's also merging stuff from episode 23, where we see all the little rays come out, like was on his hand in the one episode in the anime. And so she's like, if I die, I'll just come back somewhere else. But it seems like this version of Shinji and Rei, this version of Rei is not going to die. Shinji's not going to let it. He's like, no. Only you. He's like, that's why I'm going to save you now. And then, like, so that opens up the second impact. The third impact's happening because Shinji is trying to save Rei. That part, again, I'm like, so Shinji saving Rei is tied to the third impact? I guess. I don't know. I don't understand why him saving her is tied to the third impact, because it seemed like in End of Evangelion it was this big ritual that was like breaking down the ego of the pilot to like accept becoming a god and accepting Lilith and merging with them. But okay. All right. So saving Rei and merging with the angel, but then he exposes, but like there's not, if this right here, if this action, the idea that the angel merging with Rei, which Rei is a clone of Lilith, so technically, I guess the angel touching the clone of Lilith could activate it on its own, and then you have the Evangelion that has Yui there. I guess all the parts and pieces are there to activate the third impact. It's just bizarre because, you know, End of Evangelion, we had a whole damn ritual that we went through before we got to this. And this is just like, no. We're just on the battlefield. It's happening right now. Shinji's wish is part of it, right? Opening up this black hole. And then they have like the creepy song, the creepy happy song, which I think works better here than it did in the Asuka thing. And like the physical limiters are disappearing. The analysis is impossible. It's breaking free of the human limits that restricted it. And the Eva's returning to its original form. It's dissolved the curse humans have placed on it. Okay. And it succeeded humans to transform to a near godlike existence. So basically, the power of Nakama and love, y'all, will let you transcend into a godlike being as long as you're inside an Eva suit. I guess that's the moral here. The huge waves of complementarity, it spins heaven, earth, and all of creation together, transforming itself into condensed energy form. Yeah, basically like a big black hole. Mm-hmm. It's doing that to grant the wish of one human being just for that. Which is it's kind of odd. Again, it's kind of the whole third impact. It's like that whole business. And then Shinji looks like a monster in this next part as he's going in. He looks like demonic almost. Okay. And then goes into like merges himself into the S2 engine and like tears out part of the Evangelion so he can get down there and save Rei. He's like Ayanami. And I did like the part where he like reaches down into the angel to get her. I do like the part where he reaches down to get her and like goes inside there. Kind of like, it also is a representation of like when Sahaquiel was trying to like get down past the AT field and like had the same pose. Shinji's in the same pose. So that part's kind of cool. I liked that. I also like that he like has this blue fire around him. It's an interesting artistic choice. But then what I really like is when he breaks through the barrier and gets to Rei, like his skin, like his flesh, like comes off through there, like through the goop. The goop was great, and his flesh like comes off of his hand and his face, his arm and his face. It's like so creepy. It's like, ugh. And Rei's like, oh, there you are. Oh, hey. And then he reaches to grab her hand. And he manages to grab it and pull her out, right? And he pulls her out. He pulls her out and pulls her to him, which is a great moment. I like it. It's very artistic. It's cool that he pulls her out of the angel. And he knows that she has the CD player. And then it all like bursts apart and comes back in to form this Rei, kind of like in episode 23 when she's formed in like the angel version. That part was neat. But the Rei that's formed is the same size as the Evangelion. It's the same size. The unit one that was triggered before the rest of the units were ready. And then how is Kaji and them on top of this debris? There is a literal black hole swallowing everyone up. Like Ritsuko and Misato and them are far enough away. They're not quite at ground zero. They're far enough away that they're just watching from a distance. Kaji's right there in the center of it. How? How is a piece of debris not like chucked his head off at this point? He's like, Seal won't be quiet about this. And he says, Commander Akari, and Akari and Fuyu are there. Like, how are these three there? How? Like, no. And they're like, even though the two of them were enough to awaken the O1 unit. As we thought, all according to plan. Just a little more until our project's complete. Well, I'm like, at this point, how is your project not complete? Because at this point, they're pretty much merged together, kind of like they are in End of Evangelion. So how is your project not complete? And he's like, about my father. He's like, thank you. Because he knows, because Misato told him what she was trying to do. And she's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything. And he's like, it's fine. And he's like, I'm fine with this. He's like, I'm fine just holding you naked in this sea of whatever this is. It's fine. You tried your best, Rei. It's okay. But yeah, and then it's represented like them, like him holding her is represented with the Eva unit holding that. And then she's like, oh, and then Mari's like, I see, like you've known all along. He's quite the convenient fellow. Like get out of here, Mari! Get out of here! I wonder if it's because he smelled different. Get out of here! Shut up! What'd you do this movie? And so then, yeah, it shows the two of them, like, in giant form, like, next to one another. And she's, like, trying to merge. She's merging into his unit, kind of like End of Evangelion, right? Like, just about to merge and cause the third impact. And then, yeah, everything's, like, about to go up in smoke. And then Misato's like, this is exactly like what we experienced before, right? Now, how at this point Kaji and them are still standing there in that structure and everything's being sucked up into this black hole, I don't know. But Lilith's down in the basement, like, just chilling with the Lance of Longinus still stuck in her. Again, the Lance of Longinus is still stuck inside of her. Just so we all know. This is the birth of a new life that transcends the logos. Transcends all logic! That it does! That it does. It transcends all logic. You are 100% right, Ritsuko. Yeah. And then the cost is the elimination of older life. So it's just going to get rid of everything else and exist. So that's fine. And Misato holding it, she's like, wings. Just like 15 years ago. I like Misato's making the connection back like, oh, this is just like the second impact. Yep. That it's about to expand. They're like, yes, it's the continuation of the second impact. The third impact has begun. The world is about to end. And then, out of nowhere, Space Jesus comes in to save the day. So yeah, but we have the credits, right? And at the very end of the credits, with the rainbow, at the very end, like, the world's about to end. Everything seems to be lost. It's like Shinji and Rei. My thing is that Shinji and Rei, well, I would say Shinji unknowingly caused the third impact, but he did say he would sacrifice the world to save Rei. So I guess he understood there was a chance that he could have caused the apocalypse. I guess that knowledge was always there, but okay. But yeah, oh my god. But yeah, and then out of nowhere, this Lance of Longinus comes flying down and spears them straight through. And they're like, what on earth was that? And then, like, legs crossed, arms out, moon ready, just floats right in. Is like, he's as slender as he is in real life. Like, what is this unit with the angel above his face? The promised time has come, Shinji Ikari Shinji-kun. Like, he's just sitting there, he's like got an open view of everything. Oh my god. And then he's just like this damn, like, beam of light against the moon with the little silver of light and everything. This time I will definitely make you happy. What? He's like, this time I'm gonna make you happy, don't you worry. Like, what does that even mean? What? And then we get the preview. So it says Unit 1 is immobilized with Rei and Shinji still trapped inside. They're both trapped in the EVA unit. Okay. And then the fortified city is in ruins. And then the nerve personnel is imprisoned. Okay. The 06 unit descends dogma to Lilith. Okay. The quickening EVA Unit 8 and its pilot. Who's its pilot? What the fudge? And then we have Kaworu, like, wet. The children chosen by fate finally assemble. Well, there's Kaworu, but then who are the other four? Is it going to be Mari, Asuka, Rei, and Shinji? What's happening? And then we see the tale of people survive. And then Kaji has, like, a gun. There's a donkey and people. Gendo and Fuyu-chan are climbing a mountain with a donkey? What? And then there's Rei and then this Mari's probably naked because why wouldn't she be? And then Asuka has a damn eye patch like a freaking pirate. Because why not? What does this say? There's like the keep out. EVA 8 unit construction, no entry allowed. Well, who the hell's the 8th EVA? Where was the 7th? Why are we skipping the 7th? I don't understand why we're skipping the 7th. All right, I want to see what this thing is. Private conference between Mari, Makanami Illustrious, and Mari Makanami Illustrious. What a name. And it's blacked out. What? Okay. And Asuka just looks, I mean, at least Asuka looks happy in that. I'm so floored. So yeah. There are a lot, as you can see on here, there's a lot I primarily liked. I liked a lot of this movie. This movie was great. I primarily liked a lot of things. There were some things I didn't like, but for the most part, I did like it, or I was like, oh, that's fine. Kind of indifferent about it. There were 12 instances of fan service, and I will say this, as Schrodinger Transcat was saying in the beginning of this, wondering like I will comment on this. One negative for me is that, again, the sexuality and nudity in the original series was done to make a statement about how wrong it was. It was there to make you feel uncomfortable. It was there to make you question things. It was there to make you wonder, why do I feel this way about this? Why do the characters feel this way about this? And even the sex scenes between Masato and Kaji served a purpose. And they gave more elaboration of their characters. Here, those 12 instances that I put up there was no thinking about them. They were literally just fan service. They were gratuitous fan service. They did not need to be there. They served no emotional or character developing moments. They were just there to show you boobs and butt. And there was nothing about that. Now, granted, we got some Kaworu nudity back in the last episode, but I'm going to call that striking it even from End of Evangelion. I'm going to call that narrowing it down and making it even. Here, it was just very sexualized, and I didn't like any of it. So those parts I was like, eh. I think it kind of drove home that it missed the mark there. But I do think there's a lot I do like. Mari's character, I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe she'll have more to do in the next movie, and this was just introducing her. I was not crazy about her in this movie. My dog's going crazy. Wasn't crazy about her in this movie, but I will reserve judgment until after the second and third, until after the last two movies. Gonna reserve judgment, so we shall see. So yeah, I am gonna plan something for next week. I'm gonna check into the video game, see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll plan something else, and then the following weeks we will have 3.0 and Thrice Upon a Time. So that's exciting. Yay. So we'll see about that, right? We shall see. But in the meantime, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts down below. Overall, I really liked the movie. I'm super excited for 3.0 now. As much as I did some criticism of this, I really enjoyed it. It was bonkers. It was fun. I'm super excited for the third one now because I'm like, what are we going to do if we're not doing episode 24 or if we're doing some weird variation of it? What's going to happen? Kaworu is finally in the plot, y'all. And I've been waiting for this moment. So we'll see. They've been teasing us the last two films about Kaworu. They better deliver with him in this. So that's all I'm going to say. He's here. What we doing? So I hope y'all had a wonderful time watching this reaction and discussion. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with more Neon Genesis Evangelion.